Chapter 496. The next morning, when Jiang Xiu finished preparing the materials for refining pills, he heard the whistling sound of swords dancing in the front courtyard. In this courtyard, there was only Imperial bodyguard Li Chang practicing the sword. At Jiang Xiu's level, he didn't even need to look at the sword arts. He could tell the profundity and power of the sword arts just by listening to the sounds. To him, this level of sword arts was not even worth mentioning. Li Chang knew that with Jiang Xiu's wisdom, it was enough for him to raise his sword arts to the next level. However, he was just a servant and didn't have the qualifications to ask for advice. Moreover, he might leave in a month. If he owed Jiang Xiu this favor, he wouldn't be able to leave. In the immortal martial continent, the most important thing was strength. This greatly magnified the value of sword arts. Not good, not good. Outside the courtyard, the chubby girl's hurried cries could be heard. What's wrong? The sharp-faced servant girl, Wang Xinya, asked nervously. Although they could come and go as they pleased, they were like outliers that didn't fit in with the entire Jiang family. When the Jiang family saw them, they would point at them and talk about them. In the past, they would openly bully them, but ever since the chubby girl reported them to the family head, although they didn't bully them anymore, they still kept a respectful distance. However, in her heart, she felt that something was going to happen. Our things were stolen? And Wang Xinya said, our things were stolen? We already received our things today. The standard is very high, even higher than the other young masters and misses. It's not for living expenses, it's for cultivation resources. What cultivation resources? Aren't cultivation resources collected once a month? In any case. The chubby girl was so anxious that she didn't know how to explain it to Wang Xinya. She stomped her feet and ran to find Jiang Xiu. Young master, I saw outside that the resources that the family had prepared for you were taken away by the second master. He said that if you want them back, you should go find him. Jiang Xiu's hand that was holding the book paused. He had waited for this batch of materials for an entire day, but it was actually stolen midway. One could imagine how furious he was at this moment. Second master? A portrait of the Jiang family appeared in his mind. Jiang Haochuan, an immortal general in the army, was the most outstanding figure of the third generation of the Jiang family, and had the highest cultivation level, which was at the middle stage of lower heaven immortal. Jiang Haochuan's sudden return from the army made Jiang Xiu realize that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. It was very likely that the old lady had gotten wind of something and specially called him over. It was only natural that she would stop him from receiving such a large amount of material. If it were anyone else, they would be unhappy to see how the head of the family favored a so-called illegitimate son. Young master, what do we do? Hearing this, Wang Xinya was furious. This was too much. Since the patriarch gave it to the young master, how could he stop it? The guard Li Chang stopped. He wanted to see how this young master, who was as intelligent as a demon in the way of the sword, would deal with these trivial matters. Jiang Xiu said, go find the patriarch and tell him about this. Okay, this little one will go now. The fat maid hurriedly left. Li Chang, on the other hand, was greatly disappointed. He had thought that Jiang Xiu had some tricks up his sleeve, but he did not expect that it would be to tell his parents. He felt that this was very inappropriate. If a person were to find their parents when they encountered something, they would be looked down upon. More importantly, when would they be able to grow up and be able to stand on their own? Not long after, the fat maid ran back and said, young master, I went to find the housekeeper. The housekeeper said that the Lord went to inspect the family's fields, and will be back in 2 days. Jiang Xiu's face changed slightly. It seemed that this old lady was unwilling to give up on the 3-month agreement with him. She had made up her mind to not let Jiang Xiu have a hard time, and she didn't want him to take advantage of her. This series of schemes really made Jiang Xiu uncomfortable. He had already delayed for a day. Now that Jiang Xiu had gone out for 2 days, if he waited, it would be 3 days. But the problem was that if he didn't take the bait, the old lady would definitely make another move. If things went well, it would take 2 days, but if things didn't go well, it was possible that it would take 5 or 6 days. At that time, the 3-month time limit would be up. On the surface, the one who lost would be Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu didn't say anything more. He walked out of the house. This was the first time he had left the house in many days. The maid beside him didn't know what he was going to do. Young master? Jiang Xiu walked out directly. When the guard saw this, he didn't dare to delay. This was his duty, and he had to follow to prevent any accidents. Jiang Xiu had seen the Jiang family's courtyard map before. It wasn't hard to find Jiang Haochuan's courtyard. However, when he arrived, he realized that although Jiang Haochuan's courtyard was still there, he had already moved out and had his own residence. Jiang Xiu asked for directions and left the mansion of Jiang Haochuan, the prince of Jiang Mansion. The guard, Li Chang, followed closely behind. This was Jiang Xiu's first time visiting the capital of the Jialan dynasty. It was extremely prosperous. The streets were very wide, and the management was very standardized. It was much more standardized than the big cities on Earth. There weren't any tall buildings, but there were many lofts. It was a different kind of scenery, and people came and went like a tide. Jiang Xiu walked very quickly. After asking a few people along the way, he found Jiang Haochuan's residence. Unfortunately, perhaps he was deliberately teasing Jiang Xiu, but Jiang Haochuan wasn't in the residence. He had left a message saying that if Jiang Xiu came to look for him, he should look for him at the Phoenix Cabinet. The Phoenix Cabinet was the most high-end restaurant in the Jialan dynasty. It wasn't easy for him to come back. Of course, he had to call his friends. At this moment, in the restaurant, Jiang Haochuan was drinking heartily with a few close friends. Brother Haochuan, your Jiang family has been in the limelight recently. First, Lord Jiang brought his illegitimate child back home. Then Lord Jiang took the dignified Shengguan Zhaorong into the Jiang residence as a maidservant for your fourth brother. This is really a heaven-defying method. I didn't expect that your fourth brother would be even more generous. He actually let Shengguan Zhaorong leave the Jiang residence freely. Interesting. Jiang Haochuan didn't think that this was a good thing. When he heard it, it was even a little ear-piercing. With a sullen face he said, "My father is old and muddle-headed. It's fine if he did such things outside, but he actually kept such a high profile. Putting aside the fact that the family's property was given to that illegitimate child, it was also squandered by him so wantonly." Thinking of the resources that he had stopped today, when he checked it, he was completely stunned. That was enough to last for hundreds of years. In order to favor him, his father had actually prepared hundreds of years' worth of supplies for him. He believed that this had almost emptied the Jiang family's savings over the years. At this moment, his chest was full of anger. The Jialan dynasty had always been inherited by the eldest son of the first wife. Although he was dissatisfied, the rules were as such. It had been like this for tens of thousands of years. He had nothing to say. Those things should be his eldest brother's. However, he didn't expect that his father had actually secretly bought those things and given them to an illegitimate child. If these things were given to him, his achievements wouldn't stop at this. He would be in the late stage of the lower heaven immortal realm, or even the peak. His official position wouldn't just be rank 4. It was very likely that he would be the commander-in-chief of an army. It seems like Lord Jiang really dotes on your fourth brother. When Jiang Haochuan heard this, he became even angrier. It was too unfair. He had done so much for the Jiang family, but in the end he ended up like this. It was really disappointing. Don't worry. That bastard is a grasshopper after autumn. He won't be able to jump around for long. Just as they were talking, behind a screen next door sat 2 young girls. One of them was impressively the one who had walked out of the Jiang family, Shengguan Zhaorong. If it wasn't for her grandfather's crime, she would be an extremely rich young miss. Her friends were naturally not ordinary. Sitting opposite her was a beautiful girl with a very fairy-like temperament. Zhaorong, the people next door seem to be talking about you. Shengguan Zhaorong had gotten used to it these 2 days. As long as she went out, she would hear about her character. It seems like that young master of yours has met with trouble, Shengguan Zhaorong said. I have already left the Jiang family. It has nothing to do with him. You should be happy, but I feel that you are unhappy. Shengguan Zhaorong also felt that it was very strange. She was free, so she should be happy. But the strange thing was she just couldn't feel happy. She couldn't get the Jiang family's courtyard out of her mind. But at this moment, A manservant from Jiang Haochuan's residence rushed in and reported, "Second master, fourth young master has come to the residence. He wants you to go back immediately. He said that if you don't go back, you will regret it for the rest of your life." Humph. Jiang Haochuan coldly snorted. What a big tone. The people on the side also laughed. That person was only an earth immortal. Yet he dared to be impudent in front of a heaven immortal? The manservant whispered a few words into Jiang Haochuan's ear. His face turned pale. What? He cried out involuntarily. He had already rushed out of the restaurant. Chapter 497. What's wrong? Jiang Haochuan's friends were all confused. They were still calm, but their faces suddenly changed. What happened? There was a commotion outside. Everyone go and see. Something happened at Second Master Zhang's house. The streets along the way became extremely noisy. Many people ran towards Jiang Haochuan's mansion. The restaurant was not far from Jiang Haochuan's mansion. It was only one street away. They could even hear the commotion over there. It seemed that something had really happened. Jiang Haochuan's friends saw that something was wrong and also stood up to rush over. What's going on? Shangguan Zhaorong and her best friend also curiously went out of the restaurant. Jiang Haochuan hurried to the door. The house was already in a mess. A beautiful woman hurriedly ran over. Husband, save Xiaobing, save Xiaobing. At this moment, Jiang Haochuan was trembling with anger. He did not care about his wife and rushed over. He looked up and saw a 5 or 6-year-old child being caught on the roof. When he saw Jiang Haochuan, he cried and shouted, "Father, save me, father!" On the eaves of the roof sat a man. His long hair fluttered, his clothes flapped, and his face was incomparably cold. It was the first time Jiang Haochuan saw him, but he guessed that this person was Jiang Xiu. "Fourth brother, what are you doing?" "Put him down," Jiang Xiu said indifferently. "You say, should I cut off his left hand or right hand first?" "You're crazy, he's your nephew," Jiang Xiu said. "Is it? If you didn't remind me, I really wouldn't know. So you're my brother, he's my nephew." After saying that, Jiang Xiu's voice suddenly became cold. "Cut off both hands." "No, no. Father, save me?" Bodyguard Li Chang pulled out his sword. At this moment his hair stood on end. Jiang Haochuan stole his goods, and he captured his son. This was not the slightest bit of Xianxia style. The son of a noble family was simply a bandit. Shangguan Zhaorong's face also changed. Her best friend on the side said, "Zhaorong, you're lucky to have left him. This person is not easy to deal with. He doesn't have the slightest strength of character. It's simply outrageous." The onlookers were speechless. Jiang Haochuan shouted, "Don't be impulsive. We can talk about it." Jiang Xiu shouted. From the beginning to the end, he didn't even look at him. If it was in the past, Jiang Xiu wouldn't even bat an eyelid when killing such a small character. "Return my things intact. If there's anything missing, I'll make you regret it." Jiang Xiu was so angry that his whole body was trembling. The item was in his hands, and Jiang Xiu's strength was far inferior to his. In his opinion, he was sure that he could defeat Jiang Xiu. However, he really didn't expect that Jiang Xiu would be so evil and ruthless that he would kidnap his son to threaten him. His rationality told him that Jiang Xiu wouldn't dare to hurt his son, but the man in front of him gave him a very dangerous feeling. He felt that Jiang Xiu was capable of doing anything. He was a person who would do anything to achieve his goal. "Okay, I'll immediately send someone to return the items to you." Jiang Xiu's face was still so indifferent. He looked at the distant sky as if he was looking at a place far, far away and thinking about something that happened a long time ago. It was as if the noisy crowd below didn't exist. "Binner, wait for me for a while. Father will come and save you." Jiang Haochuan helplessly sent the intercepted resources back to the Jiang family. At the Jiang family's side, the old lady had also heard the news and rushed over. When she saw her great-grandson hanging in midair, her face turned ashen. Jiang Xiu's ruthlessness gave her a deep slap in the face. "You unfilial son, you're simply lawless." Jiang Xiu glanced at him. If the other party was a gentleman, he would treat him with respect. However, the other party was just a despicable person, so he wouldn't be polite. Jiang Xiu had already taken a step back and set a deadline of 3 months. This was a gentleman's agreement. He even wanted to try the Xianhun pill in a hurry, but the other party still used such a despicable method. He wanted to bully Jiang Xiu and steal his resources. Little did he know that Jiang Xiu had fought his way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood in the Tianqing school. His eyes gradually turned cold. "If you say another word, I'll chop off this brat's head." The old lady was so angry that her eyes almost popped out. The surrounding people began to whisper. This was a family matter of the Jiang family. It turned out that the conflict between the fourth young master and the Jiang family was so big that he didn't care about the family at all. More people were shocked by the fourth young master's ruthless means, which was really creepy. Shangguan Zhaorong's face turned pale when she saw this. She was still unfamiliar with Jiang Xiu, but after this incident, she had a deeper understanding of Jiang Xiu. Luckily you left early. If you were really with him, he might even kill you if he was in a bad mood. Shangguan Zhaorong kept quiet and looked at Jiang Xiu. "Let's go." Jiang Xiu flew towards the Jiang family, and his bodyguards followed closely behind. Xiaobing. Mother. Seeing that his child was safe and sound, Jiang Haochuan broke out in cold sweat. That was a madman. The old lady's face was also very ugly, and there was fear in her eyes. "Jiang Chonghai, you unfilial son. What kind of woman did you get together with to create such a monster?" The old lady stomped her feet in anger. And Fu said, "Old lady, now that the second master is back, and so is Elder Du, 2 mid-level lower god existences can directly capture the fourth young master. When the time comes, you can do whatever you want." The old lady looked at Jiang Haochuan. "Second brother, what do you think?" Jiang Haochuan confirmed that his son was safe and said, "Grandmother, the cause of this incident is father. Why don't you ask father to step in?" He and Elder Du could indeed take down Jiang Xiu, but there was also Jiang Xiu. He couldn't lock Jiang Xiu up forever. If he was released, he would be fine, but his son, wife, and the rest of the Jiang family would be in danger. "Didn't he have a 3-month agreement with you?" "It's only 3 months. How much resources can he use? When the time comes, if he can't do it, we can openly take it back. At that time, father won't have anything to say." The old lady heard this. "Then we can only do this. Disperse, everyone disperse. There's nothing to see." Shangguan Zhaorong and her best friend returned to the restaurant. Her best friend asked, "Zhaorong, what do you plan to do in the future? Are you going to the Yi family or the Guda family?" Shangguan Zhaorong said, "I'm not going to either." "Not going? Then where are you going?" Shangguan Zhaorong said, "I want to leave the Jialan dynasty and see the outside world. If there's a chance, I want to enter a big sect." "Leave the Jialan dynasty? Don't be silly. With your cultivation, I guarantee you won't live for more than 3 days once you leave the Jialan dynasty." That best friend pondered for a moment and said, "However, I understand that you want to leave here. Your great-grandfather got into trouble and was even sent away. It's very difficult for you to have any good opportunities in the Jialan dynasty. At most, you'll marry into the Yi family or the Duga family and become a concubine. Joining a sect can indeed change your fate. I heard that in a few days, there will be an elder council from a big sect coming to visit my father." Shangguan Zhaorong's eyes lit up. "Really? Which big sect?" "It's Qingzhou's Tianqing school." The Jialan dynasty had always paid tribute to the Tianqing school. Although they were far apart, there was still some fate that established a better relationship than just meeting by chance. After the Jidao sect succeeded the position of sect master, their attitude wasn't as high as Jiang Xiu's. They didn't spare a glance for these dynasties. In addition, the Tianqing school lost some talents after the accident more than 10 years ago, and needed to replenish them. Some of the Tianqing school's elders went out to take in some disciples. Joining the Tianqing school was something that many people dreamed of. A large sect with 13 immortal kings was a colossal existence. Not only were the sect's spells powerful, but the reputation of the Tianqing school's disciples was something that ordinary people didn't dare to provoke. Of course, the Tianqing school's prestige today had a lot to do with the former sect master, Jiang Luoxia. Tianqing school. Is it the Tianqing school of sect master Jiang Luoxia, who left behind the 9 mysteries cleansing heavens, established 1,000 years of work, and was unrestrained and romantic? Shengguan Zhaorong's eyes lit up. That's right. However, Jiang Luoxia has already fallen, and the sect master has already changed. However, Tianqing School will always be Tianqing School. Can you recommend me when the time comes? The other party smiled bitterly and said, I'll try my best. Tianqing School has extremely high requirements for its disciples' talents. Those who can enter its doors are all geniuses. After the accident in Shengguan Zhaorong's family, her cultivation was delayed. However, her aptitude before was considered quite good. Chapter 498. Geniuses were relative. You might be the most outstanding and talented person in a small county, and everyone would call you a genius. However, once you reach the prefectural city, you might be mediocre or even at the bottom. True geniuses needed to be tested. Back then, Jiang Xiu was a true peerless genius. Ever since he appeared out of nowhere, his cultivation speed and battle achievements were incomparably shocking. Moreover, the further he progressed, the more powerful he became. In the end, he soared to the heavens. Shengguan Zhaorong was considered a genius when she was young. However, she was not good at cultivation. She liked music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. It was a pity. However, her talent was not truly tested. Moreover, she had missed the early stages of cultivation. However, she only had a chance to change her fate if she entered a large sect. This is my only chance. I'll bring you to the state banquet on that day. The Jiang family made a big move in the fight for the inheritance. The second brother snatched the fourth brother's resources, and the fourth brother directly kidnapped his nephew. The news spread like the wind throughout the capital. Gossip was human nature. Everyone in the capital was excited. Even the royal family, including the Kalan emperor, Xue Xingjing, soon heard the news. What is Jiang Chonghai doing? How dare he neglect my esteemed guest? Xue Xingjing immediately frowned. That Jiang Haochuan is also too much. He actually took advantage of his high position and strength to snatch his younger brother's resources. What nonsense! Everyone considered problems from their own perspective. Xue Xingjing was not in the mood, and did not need to consider who was right or wrong in this matter. However, from his point of view, neglecting Jiang Xiu was akin to framing him. If the patriarch blamed him, even he would not be able to bear it. As a subject, if he could not share the patriarch's worries and did not do a good job, what was the point of keeping him? Many people were eyeing this position. Pass down my decree. Jiang Chonghai did not do a good job and was not strict enough. He will be demoted by 1 rank. As a soldier, Jiang Haochuan openly snatched other people's property and will be investigated. He will be sent to prison for 1 month. A bolt from the blue. When the imperial edict came, the old lady even called the second master to her courtyard. Today's matter had a huge impact on him. Although Ben-Er was not injured, he was still frightened. Although Jiang Xiu was extremely angry, he was the one who started this matter. Jiang Haochuan was only retaliating. Although he was unhappy, if he really continued to make trouble, it was inevitable that the brothers would turn against each other. It was inevitable that the family would not have a peaceful day. However, if the family stood on his side, he would not hesitate to deal with Jiang Xiu. But the problem was that the clan head supported Jiang Xiu. If they persisted, there would be 2 factions. Did they really have to cause internal strife? More importantly, those assets belonged to the boss. If he were to take them back, he would only end up benefiting someone else in the end. Second brother, tell grandmother, what are you thinking? Why did you let him off so easily today? In old lady Zhang's opinion, it was a piece of cake to take down Jiang Xiu. This illegitimate son from outside needed to be taught a lesson. She must teach him a good lesson so that he would be honest and behave himself in the Jiang family. Did you think that it would be easy to take him down? When you saw that he was unruly and ruthless, and things became troublesome, you decided to retreat. After all, you have already separated from the family. Whether those assets are taken back or not has little to do with you. You even offended your father for no reason. Although he was being serious, Jiang Haochuan would never admit it. Grandmother, you misunderstood. Old Lady Jiang was very experienced. How could she not see through it? It's human nature. I heard about that batch of resources. It's hundreds of years of use. It's more than half of the Jiang family's assets. Second brother, he doesn't deserve it. Let's not talk about the fact that he is an illegitimate son. With his talent, why should the whole family's resources be spent on him alone? You have such talent and you follow the rules. What does he have? Jiang Haochuan was slightly moved. I would rather give all these things to you so that the Jiang family can cultivate a late-stage or peak-stage lower celestial immortal. One day he can even bring glory to the Jiang family and become a middle-stage celestial immortal. Jiang Haochuan said, if I get those things back, those resources will really belong to me. When have I ever lied to you? Jiang Haochuan's eyes gradually became sharp. At this moment, the imperial edict came. Old Lady Jiang and Jiang Haochuan were shocked and confused at the same time. Jiang Chonghai is not strict enough. He will be demoted by 1 level. As a soldier, Jiang Haochuan openly snatched other people's property. He will be dismissed and investigated. He will be sent to prison for a month. What? Old Lady Jiang and Jiang Haochuan were stunned on the spot. No. The palace servant who delivered the imperial edict was expressionless. He said coldly, what are you waiting for? Receive the imperial edict. How could this be? Old Lady Jiang and Jiang Haochuan felt as if they had been struck by lightning, especially Jiang Haochuan. He had worked so hard to climb to his current position, but it was gone just like that? Sir, I want to see His Majesty. This is a misunderstanding. He did not expect that just casually teaching someone a lesson would cause such a big mess. Middle stage lower heavenly god. This level of cultivation was not low, but there were many people like this. He was able to reach this level because of his relationship with the Jiang family. Many middle stage lower heavenly gods could only work as guards in the Rain Dragon Guard. He, on the other hand, was a general who commanded thousands of soldiers. He was a 4th rank official. But it was gone just like that. No, the servant said. What are you waiting for? Take him down and send him to prison. The imperial edict said very clearly that Jiang Haochuan would be sent to prison for a month as a warning to others. Old Lady Jiang was completely stunned. The farce that she had orchestrated caused her son to be demoted, and her grandson to lose the glory that he had worked so hard to obtain. How could this be? On the other hand, their opponent, the person in the courtyard, was not only safe and sound, but also took back all the resources. Jiang Chonghai, who was out of town, rushed back when he heard the news. However, what he heard was such bad news. He rushed in, picked up the wooden stick by the door, and hit Jiang Haochuan. You disobedient son. You harmed me, you harmed the Jiang family. Jiang Haochuan was completely stunned. He could not understand. Even if the whole city knew about this small family matter, it would not anger the emperor. Not only would he remove him from his position, but he would also implicate his father. This was a great loss. What right do you have to steal Old Fourth's resources? What right do you have? Jiang Chonghai's eyes were bloodshot. That was arranged by the emperor for young Master Jiang. Even if he did not know about it, he still arranged it for his 4th son. Yet he dared to snatch it away in public. Did he still have any respect for his father? Jiang Haochuan was already stunned. Old Lady Jiang did not dare to make a sound. The situation was serious. Jiang Chonghai felt that it was strange. Something had happened in the manor, and he had to deal with it. So it was all set up by these 2 people. He then went to Jiang Xiu's courtyard. At this time, the only person who could change the emperor's mind was that mysterious young Master Jiang. However, he could not even enter the door. Young Master said that he would not see anyone. Jiang Xiu was already refining the soul suppression pill in the room. Jiang Xiu had refined this pill before. At that time, it was purely to improve his alchemy skills, not because he needed it. To him, it was not a difficult task. The real test was whether or not Jiang Xiu could withstand the medicinal power of the medicinal pill. If he could not only would he waste the resources, his soul would also be damaged. In the evening, he refined 10 pills. He rested for a while, drank a cup of tea, and began to cultivate in seclusion. The pill floated in front of him, emitting a dark flame. It was quite magical. He opened his mouth and sucked the pill into his mouth. He did not feel much, but when he swallowed it, the pill's effects took effect. Jiang Xiu felt his heart beat faster, the blood in his body surged, and his mind became not so clear. His mind was filled with images of killing, creating a strong sense of destruction. Although Jiang Xiu liked to kill, his state of mind was very firm. He had superhuman control, which he had honed over 3,000 years of cultivation. If he were an ordinary person, he would have gone crazy. The pill's effects continued to take effect. Jiang Xiu felt his soul strengthen rapidly. This speed was almost twice as fast as the soul suppression pill. This was the first time he took the pill, so the effect would be the best. Later it would slowly decline. But this speed was already very shocking. It works, it really works. Jiang Xiu had a divine body now, and his soul had fused with a godhead. He was indeed different from immortals who walked the golden core Tao. Although the saying that gods and demons were originally from the same race was not credible, the saying that the two races were closer still made sense. So fast. At this speed, I will have the opportunity to break through in a month. Chapter 499. Everyone had different physiques, so they had different tolerance to pills. The conversion rate of the soul tempering pill was close to 90%, almost the same as the soul tempering pill. However, the rate at which the effects of the soul tempering pill evaporated was twice as fast as the soul tempering pill. This would allow Jiang Xiu's cultivation speed to increase by another fold. The soul was very fragile, especially at the earth god level. During his cultivation, his consciousness would be blurry and he would often experience hallucinations. He had even lost consciousness several times. However, he had endured through it. After 3,000 years of cultivation, he had rich experience in cultivation. He was already used to all kinds of problems. To him, cultivation was like playing games for an otaku on earth. He was addicted to it. The next day, when the first rays of the morning sun scattered into the courtyard and shone on the green leaves, he slowly opened his eyes. A strong light shot out of them. His soul had increased dramatically in one night. If it was in the past, he would be 100 times more energetic. However, he was not in good spirits. He looked dispirited and exhausted. However, Jiang Xiu had a rare smile on his face. Looks like my divine body is really extraordinary. When the first divine pattern could not form a complete pattern, Jiang Xiu had a feeling that divine cultivation was more suitable for him than immortal cultivation. Now he was completely sure. If he could persevere, he would not even need a month. In half a month, his soul would be strong enough to break through to the heavenly god level. Meanwhile, in the main courtyard of the Jiang family, Jiang Chonghai went to the palace yesterday and was scolded badly by the emperor. He was even ordered to stay at home and reflect. He did not even need to attend court. Look at what you've done. The old lady leaned on her walking stick angrily. You gave birth to an illegitimate child out of nowhere. Now, not only have you been demoted, but you've also caused your son to lose his position. Jiang Chonghai's face was ashen. Did I want to bring this illegitimate child home? That was the emperor's order. Was I the one who lost my position? I told you not to interfere with young Master Jiang. If you didn't take advantage of your seniority and insist on going with someone else, even wanting to snatch the resources the emperor gave him, wouldn't you have angered the emperor? In the end, you're blaming me? His head hurt. This disobedient son is a disaster, a jinx. The old lady couldn't sleep last night. We can't let him continue to stay in the Jiang family. Otherwise, he may bring trouble to our Jiang family in the future. Jiang Chonghai shouted angrily. Enough! The emperor's order was supposed to be under his family's name. This young Master Jiang lived in seclusion and rarely came out. He lived his own life, the Jiang family and the Jiang family. He had made a contribution and was also profitable. It was such a good job, but now he was in such a state. How could he be chased away? Do you think you can chase away the emperor's men? You dare to yell at me? Jiang Chonghai said. What did I tell you? I told you not to provoke him. I told you not to provoke him, but you didn't listen. Now, I've been demoted and Hao Chuan has lost his position. You still want to make a scene? Do you want the whole Jiang family to go down with you? The old lady glared at him and said, You're blaming me? You're blaming me for an illegitimate son? Jiang Chonghai knew that he was being too harsh. After all, this was his mother. He softened his tone and said, I can't let him leave. From now on, don't provoke him anymore. Old Lady Jiang said, if you don't provoke him, then you'll give him so many resources month after month. Even if the Jiang family has a mountain of gold and silver, it will be squandered away by him sooner or later. He's just a lowly protoss. Giving him resources is no different from throwing them into the sea. But you're still not allowed to provoke him. Old Lady Jiang was very strong. I can't sit and watch the Jiang family continue to be defeated. 3 months. After 3 months, if he can't do it, he must hand over the resources. This is what he promised himself. Jiang Chonghai said. He really said that. Old Lady Jiang said. It's true. Many people were there. Jiang Chonghai was demoted. Although it was only a difference of 1 rank, his resources were reduced by more than 1 level. It was more than double. Jiang Haochuan also lost his position. If the Jiang family wanted to continue to cultivate, they must have new resources. If Jiang Xiu was willing, then everything would be different. Then during these 3 months, don't provoke him anymore. He didn't need to get back at them. He only needed the information that the emperor gave to Jiang Xiu to make up for the loss of the Jiang family. Old Lady Jiang was determined to teach Jiang Xiu a lesson. And Haochuan, I received news that Qingzhou's Tianqing school will come to our Jialan dynasty to recruit disciples. If the Tianqing school didn't change its sect master, this would never happen. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Don't let that stinky brat run around during this time. Seize the time to cultivate. If he really enters the Tianqing school, our Jiang family's position in the Jialan dynasty will be completely different. Old Lady Jiang nodded slightly and said, I will keep an eye on him. 10 days later, the first batch of disciples from the Tianqing school arrived to make arrangements for the elders who would come later. For a time, the entire Jialan dynasty's imperial capital was incomparably noisy. Countless nobles of the Jialan dynasty stretched their necks, wanting to enter the Tianqing school. The news also spread to Jiang Xiu's courtyard. Although the 2 girls were also whispering, it was too far away from them. However, Imperial bodyguard Li Chang was moved. Tianqing school was a super sect with 13 immortal kings. Even if the Tianqing school's disciples went out, even the Jialan dynasty's emperor had to provide for them. He thought that if he could enter the Tianqing school, even if he was just an errand boy, his future would be better than being a Yinglong guard in the Jialan dynasty, not to mention his current situation. However, if he wanted to be an errand boy in the Tianqing school, he would have to fight until his scalp was broken. How could he have a chance? Just as he was thinking, he suddenly heard Wang Xinya's cry of surprise. Then everyone saw a shocking scene. They saw a huge cyclone slowly condensing and forming above the wooden house where they were. The cyclone enveloped an area of at least 1 mile, almost enveloping the entire Jiang mansion. Looking up, it was as if a vast cosmic storm had appeared in the sky, sweeping down as if it was going to swallow them. What is that? Wang Xinya was shocked. This is... Imperial bodyguard Li Chang was stunned for a moment, then suddenly widened his eyes. Then he saw the trees in the courtyard flying up, the buds were blooming, and there was a magical soft light floating into the sky. The celestial phenomenon has descended, and a miracle has appeared. Someone has cultivated to become a heavenly god. Could it be? Young master had been inside for more than 10 days and hadn't come out. Li Chang still didn't dare to be sure, but he was already extremely shocked. If this was true, then it could only be young master. Young master has advanced to become a heavenly god. This was a step that seized the fortune of heaven and earth. Even the most talented figures in history took more than a year. How could young master have gone into seclusion for more than 10 days? What a joke. Advanced to become a heavenly god? Wang Xinya's eyes were about to pop out. Although she was only a maid, she yearned for the legendary figures of the immortal martial continent very much. Therefore, she was also very familiar with cultivation speed. The celestial phenomenon came and went quickly, as if it had never happened. However, the trees in the courtyard suddenly grew to more than 10 meters tall. The flowers and plants in the courtyard bloomed, and the bamboo forest was even more lush and verdant. This is definitely not an illusion. At this moment, the courtyard seemed to have changed from a mortal world to a courtyard in the immortal world. It was colorful, mysterious, and full of vitality. What are you talking about? Tianqing School came here to recruit disciples? The door opened, and a figure walked out with his hands behind his back. Before he came out, the resplendent divine light in his eyes had already shone. Young master. Looking at the man in front of him, he felt that his temperament had once again undergone a huge change. His appearance was still 70 to 80% similar to his impression, but he was taller than before. His appearance was much more handsome and mysterious than before. His entire body exuded a sense of beauty, and that strong divine aura made people feel incomparably respectful. I'll say it again. Tianqing School came here to recruit disciples? Li Chang said. Yes, the previous disciples have already arrived. Later, it is said that an elder from Tianqing School will come personally. Elder? Who is it? Li Chang shook his head and said, I don't know the details. Go out and ask. Yes. Tianqing School had never announced their income to the public. This was also an excellent opportunity for Jiang Xiu, an opportunity to return to Tianqing School in a justifiable manner. If he wanted to walk the path of cultivation faster, it was just that the Jialan dynasty could not satisfy him at all. He had to find the resources he had hidden in the sect. Chapter 500. Li Chang, on the other hand, kept staring at Jiang Xiu. The spiritual cultivation was an important place for immortals in the spiritual state. Yang gods were rare, and earth gods were even rarer. As for celestial gods, they were almost a rare animal. Therefore, Li Chang had never seen a celestial god before, but he could clearly feel that Jiang Xiu's aura was as strong as his the moment he pushed open the door and walked out. Could it be that he had really advanced? This was too unbelievable. If this was true, it was enough to cause a sensation in the entire Xianwu continent. Advancing to celestial god in half a month, this speed surpassed all the big shots on the cultivation speed list. An incomparably bright new star would be born out of nowhere. No, it must be fake. Li Chang knew that Jiang Xiu's current strength should definitely be that of a celestial god. But what he meant by fake was that Jiang Xiu had faked it before. It must be that the young master was a celestial god before, and used a secret method to hide his cultivation. This explained why he could see through the methods of a celestial god with the cultivation of a mere earth god. This also explained why the young master dared to make a 3-month agreement with Grandma Jiang. If I'm not wrong, the young master's true strength should be at the mid-stage of the lower celestial god. What a deep scheme, what an ingenious plan. However, wasn't this too high profile? He had suddenly pushed himself into the teeth of the storm. In the Xianwu continent, it was very common to fake cultivation speed. Therefore, when low-level cultivators advanced by leaps and bounds, everyone would still have a wait-and-see attitude and a skeptical attitude. Unless you continued to exert strength at an astonishing speed, only then would you be truly recognized. Therefore, prestige was extremely difficult to achieve in one go. It needed to be accumulated wave after wave, and when it reached a peak, it would be completely detonated. In his previous life, Jiang Xiu first showed his talent in the celestial motion sect. Then he rose up like a comet. He was like a wild horse that couldn't be stopped. He rushed all the way to the position of immortal king. His cultivation speed was the key to him being able to become the Tianqing School's sect master. I'll go out and ask around. This was the first time that Li Chang had taken the initiative to volunteer. Previously, Li Chang had always been very passive in following Jiang Xiu. But now Jiang Xiu was different. The god of heaven was in existence in a completely different realm. He felt that he had to reevaluate this master of his. Let me go. The fat maid said. Brother Li should stay and protect the young master. Li Chang opened his mouth, but closed it in the end. Young master, I'll go make some tea. Now, the news had spread all over the streets and alleys of the Jialan Empire that an elder from the Tianqing School was coming. What kind of existence was an elder from the Tianqing School? They were people who stood at the top of the state pyramid. Most of them were immortal kings. Even if they weren't immortal kings, they were still great celestial immortals. One had to know that there was only one great celestial immortal in the entire Jialan Empire, and that was Xuelingyun. The great perfection celestial god realm only existed in legends. The higher the celestial immortal realm was, the more they would understand how impossible it was to reach the great perfection celestial god realm. There were hundreds of millions of celestial immortal realm cultivators in the Jialan dynasty, but there was only one celestial immortal realm cultivator. The news spread quickly. It was a person called Lu Changkong. Lu Changkong. It was him. Jiang Xiu was slightly stunned. This person was a strange person. He was a very unique person in the Tianqing school. His cultivation methods were also very unorthodox. He was quite accomplished in formations. Jiang Xiu had consulted him for a period of time, because of his cultivation of formations. He remembered that this person was neither arrogant nor humble. He was neither too flattering nor too distant. This person's relationship with the people in the sect was very ordinary. Instead, he liked to befriend people from other sections. If one were to say that he was loyal to Jiang Xiu, the sect leader, since he was not an enemy, he would definitely not be a friend. He was the kind of person who avoided personal conflicts and only had the sect in his heart. As a subordinate, he did not come to get close to the sect leader. As a superior, Jiang Xiu had even less reason to condescend to befriend him. It was funny that Jiang Xiu could not remember what he looked like. However, Jiang Xiu believed that he definitely remembered what Jiang Luoxia looked like. This was like a big company. The boss might not remember what the employees looked like, but the employees would definitely remember what the boss looked like. If he sees me, will he recognize me? Looking at his appearance in the mirror, Jiang Xiu felt that he was somewhat unfamiliar. No matter how immortals cultivated, although their temperament would become more and more like an immortal, their appearance would not change. However, every time a god cultivator evolved, their appearance would change. To be honest, the current Jiang Xiu should be very different from Jiang Luoxia. However, he was him. If he was recognized, the consequences would be unimaginable. Young master, your appearance is very good-looking. Wang Xinya said sweetly when she saw Jiang Xiu in a daze while looking at the mirror. Good-looking? Jiang Xiu asked. Was I good-looking in the past or now? Both. It was a good official answer. Jiang Xiu needed someone to tell him how big the change in his appearance was, and whether he would be recognized. In fact, his greatest confidence was not in the change in his appearance, but in the change in his human nature. He used to be an immortal, but now he was a god. No one could change from an immortal to a god. This was something that no one could do. No one would have thought that on the other side of the universe, there was an extremely hateful woman who used the great fate technique to pull him back to his youth. He had no choice but to cultivate again. Also, he used to cultivate the sword, but now he cultivated the saber. There was also a big difference in his spells. Adding all of this together, Jiang Xiu became more and more confident. He believed that Lu Changkong definitely wouldn't be able to recognize him. Perhaps only someone close to the Sky Motion sect would be able to recognize him, but that would be something to worry about after he reunited with the Sky Motion sect. As long as he could return, if there were any bad signs, he could take his things and leave. When will the Tianqing school start accepting disciples? The fat servant girl said, we have to wait until the Tianqing school elder arrives. Although the Tianqing school disciples are now in contact with people from all walks of life to select some reserved talents. Does young master want to give it a try? Not only the two servant girls but Li Chang, who was outside, was also looking forward to it. The disciples of Tianqing school could bring servants to take care of their daily chores. Jiang Xiu only had them now. If Jiang Xiu was selected, then they would all have the opportunity to enter Tianqing school together. Of course. Hearing this answer, they were all delighted. Help me pass a message to Lord Jiang. Just say that I want to enter Tianqing school and ask him to find a way to arrange it. Okay, this servant will go now. The Tianqing school's first priority was talent, followed by character and mood. Back then Jiang Xiu, who didn't know anything, was selected. Now there was no reason for him to be eliminated. What kind of joke was this? If he failed to be selected, wouldn't he become a laughing stock? In the Jialan Palace, Xue Xingjing sat on the high seat. His dozen or so sons were all sitting below, and some of his grandchildren were among them. These were the most outstanding descendants of the royal family. Not only were the nobles of Jialan Palace scrambling for Tianqing School, but even the royal family was scrambling for it. I've asked the heavenly emissary. There's no limit to the number of disciples they can accept. Hearing this, the descendants below were all happy. It was as if this opportunity was much greater. Do you think that just because there's no limit to the number of people, you can all go? Before coming to our Jialan dynasty, they had already been to more than 30 dynasties, but they only accepted 3 disciples. As soon as these words were spoken, the people below were in an uproar again. Only one person out of 10 empires could enter the heaven motion sect's eyes. So you must make me proud. The princes rubbed their palms together. If they could really enter Tianqing School, the throne would no longer be a dream. In fact, they might not even care about the throne in the future. They might even become someone like the patriarch. Only one of the royal grandsons sat there calmly, as if Tianqing School was not attractive to him. Yanku, I have high hopes for you. Everyone's eyes were focused on this royal grandchild. He looked neither sad nor happy. Since Jiang Luoxia, Tianqing School has no more geniuses. It has been reduced to the point that it has to look for talents in other provinces. Everyone thinks that entering Tianqing School is a good thing, but I don't think so. Everyone present was in an uproar. Even Xue Xingjing was a little confused. Yanku, I contacted several large sects for you, but you didn't take a fancy to all of them. Could it be that even Tianqing School is not worthy of your attention? In the past, Tianqing School's reputation was incomparably prominent, but that was because Jiang Luoxia was at his peak. Now that Jiang Luoxia has inexplicably fallen, I'm afraid that Tianqing School is only left with its reputation. Tianqing School is not a sect that fishes for fame. There are a total of 13 celestial kings in the sect. Even if we exclude Jiang Luoxia, there are still 12 celestial kings. Our Jialan dynasty will never forget this kind of strength. The royal grandchild shook his head. Why would the Tianqing School of the past need to come out and look for talents? The Tianqing School is no longer as grand as it used to be. Xue Xingjing said. Grandson, what do you mean? The royal grandchild smiled and did not say anything else. Some tricks flashed in his eyes. Your Majesty, Jiang Chonghai, Lord Jiang is outside asking for an audience. Chapter 501. When Xue Xingjing heard that Jiang Xiu was here, the thought of Jiang Xiu flashed across his mind. It should be about that mysterious young master again. However, the most important thing now was for the Xue family's descendants to enter Tianqing School. He said impatiently, let him wait. Jiang Chonghai waited for more than half a day. This made him, who was already uneasy because of the previous incident, even more flustered. When Xue Xingjing arrived, he hurriedly knelt down and bowed. Forget it. Why are you here, Minister Jiang? Jiang Chonghai stood up and said, Your Majesty, I'm here for young Master Jiang. After this morning, young Master Jiang sent a maid to pass a message to me. He said that he wants to enter Tianqing School. Xue Xingjing was about to sit down when he heard this. His body stiffened. After sitting down, he didn't immediately answer. His face revealed a contemplative expression, and his brows furrowed. He was very unhappy. He could give Jiang Xiu anything he wanted, except for this. He felt that Jiang Xiu was too greedy. He relied on his relationship with the ancestor to ask the lion of the Jialan dynasty for such a thing. If I remember correctly, he's an earth god. That's right. Xue Xingjing shook his head and said, If he's talented, I can recommend him. But if he's a human who's cultivating to become a god, and is only an earth god, how can I ask the immortals? Even if I do, will the Heaven Motion sect give me face? Rejected. The emperor rejected him. Jiang Xiu was so excited that he almost jumped up. This Jiang Xiu relied on the emperor's favor to be arrogant and repeatedly asked for exorbitant prices. Now he had finally angered the emperor. He could feel that Jiang Xiu was about to lose his favor. As a minister, the most important thing was to know when to advance and retreat. He must not be arrogant because of favor. Go back and tell young Master Jiang that I can't do anything. Yes. Xue Xingjing cared about his reputation the most. Now that Jiang Xiu had proposed something that he couldn't do and made him lose face, one could imagine how Xue Xingjing would treat Jiang Xiu in the future. It was foreseeable that Jiang Xiu would fall out of favor. Wait. In the future, if you have anything to do with young Master Jiang, don't bother me. As expected, Jiang Chonghai bowed again and said, yes. Walking out of the palace, Jiang Chonghai's footsteps were light. For so many days his mood had been gloomy. Today it finally cleared up. He knew that this day would come sooner or later, but he didn't expect it to come so soon. He had fallen out of favor. The temptation of Tianqing School was too great. When Xue Xingjing heard that Jiang Xiu also wanted to get a share of Tianqing School, he felt a burst of smoke. Competing with his grandson for a future? Was he kidding? He believed that even if he offended Jiang Xiu because of this matter, the patriarch wouldn't blame him. After all, it was a place for Tianqing School, which could stabilize the Jialan dynasty's position. Jiang Chonghai had always been the type of person who didn't dare to come in after being rejected outside the door. However, today he didn't pass on a message or shout. He pushed open the door, just like how he pushed open the doors of the other courtyards of the Jiang family. He walked in casually. When the maids and guards saw him, they were surprised. Jiang Xiu, who was pouring tea in the room, also paused. He had cultivated for 3,000 years, and was once the noble sect master. From Jiang Chonghai's attitude, he knew that Xue Xingjing had rejected him. He continued to drink a mouthful of spiritual tea. After using the Bien Soul pill to cultivate, he needed spiritual tea to nourish his spirit even more. Where's your young master? Call him out. The fat girl was a little frightened by her master's imposing manner today. It seems that it's not good news. Jiang Xiu's calm voice came from inside the room. He was aware of everything outside while sitting inside the room, which showed the wisdom of this mysterious young master. He was still as arrogant as ever, talking to her through the door. Yes, I'm afraid that I can't fulfill your request. Jiang Xiu said. It's reasonable. Even if the Tianqing School's reputation has declined, it's still far beyond the reach of the Jialan royal family, even if it's just a place for an ordinary disciple. Jiang Chonghai smiled coldly. He saw Jiang Xiu's words as an excuse for being rejected by the emperor. That's right. What kind of existence is the Tianqing School? Not just anyone can reach it, especially Sai Xiu. It's not that I want to criticize you, but what's the difference between a mere human divine cultivator wanting to enter the Tianqing School? Wake up, spend more time cultivating, and be a down-to-earth person. He actually took advantage of his seniority to lecture Jiang Xiu in front of him. Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold, and he slowly put down the teacup in his hand. Is spiritual cultivation worse than immortal cultivation? I don't think so. Both had their own merits. In this world, there was no such thing as the best, only the most suitable. Jiang Xiu's spiritual cultivation was more suitable than immortal cultivation, at least for now. Of course, his realm was still low, and he might encounter problems in the future. Human immortal cultivation is not spiritual cultivation. This is the accumulated experience of countless ancestors in the immortal martial continent. Don't tell me that you're smarter and more insightful than so many amazing geniuses in the immortal martial continent. Jiang Xiu said, there are records that say it's only tens of thousands of years ago. Then what about tens of thousands of years ago? Perhaps there was a golden age of the human race's spiritual cultivation, and it wasn't only natural Protoss who could cultivate spiritual cultivation. Humans originally had the bloodline of Protoss. Otherwise, how could they cultivate spiritual cultivation? Sigh. Jiang Chonghai shook his head and sighed helplessly. That's all I have to say. You can only blame your poor talent for immortal cultivation, and can only cultivate spiritual cultivation. However, since you think spiritual cultivation is better, you should persist. Isn't there an old saying that you can never wake up a person who's pretending to sleep? However, don't even think about the Tianqing School. It's wishful thinking. After saying this, he turned around. He was in an exceptionally good mood today, and even the sun was shining brightly. He believed that Jiang Xiu's good days would be gone forever. Oh right. Don't forget about the 3-month agreement. There's still 2.5 months left. He had already made up his mind. Since Jiang Xiu caused his Jiang family to suffer heavy losses, then 3 months later, all his cultivation resources would be handed over to the Jiang family, and the Jiang family would arrange them. Emph. Jiang Xiu sneered. He was here as an official. This was a task assigned to him by the Emperor of Kalan. Jiang Chonghai did not restrain his family's disciples well, and yet he wanted to vent his anger on Jiang Xiu. This person's position as a second-rank official was probably due to the accumulated merits of his ancestors. Master, what should we do? Last Pan's personality was more straightforward. However, there was no response from the room for a long time. Jiang Xiu naturally knew the rules of the Tianqing school's disciple selection. He was not in a hurry. Lu Chongkong had not arrived yet, and no matter what these people did, it would be in vain. After recuperating for a day, Jiang Xiu's essence, energy, and spirit had basically recovered. After entering the lower divine realm, he was considered a true divine realm expert. Normally speaking, his lifespan was almost limitless. However, this was only a theoretical possibility. In reality, even a divine king could fall. A long lifespan did not mean that one could live for a long time, and it did not mean that one could live forever. Meanwhile, the first stroke of the third divine path diagram appeared in Jiang Xiu's mind. When he was a sun god, he had awakened the first sound of heaven and earth. When he was an earth god, he had obtained the divine pattern of the laws of the world. He was like a divine realm expert. He did not know what this divine path diagram would be, but he was looking forward to it. Moreover, after entering the divine realm, the main cultivation was to comprehend the laws. The remaining laws of the great god sealing technique were the laws of earth, fire, water, and wind, as well as the original laws of time and space. After absorbing the 6 gods, he would establish the god sealing monument. To comprehend the laws, it was not enough to just go into seclusion. One had to comprehend a certain point and meditate for a long time before choosing to go into seclusion. However, he had already touched the threshold of the law of fire. If he continued on this path, coupled with the assistance of elixirs, not only would his realm be able to keep up, but his cultivation would also be able to keep up. In addition, he would not give up on strengthening his soul. Realm, cultivation, and soul were all very important. However, Jiang Xiu knew that the soul was still the most important at this stage. Taking advantage of the fact that he still had enough materials to refine the soul suppression pill, he might be able to break through another small realm in a short period of time. A few days later, the capital of Jialan Empire became extremely noisy. An important person who could attract the attention of the entire capital, and who they had been waiting for a long time, had finally arrived. This was the first immortal king of the Jialan Empire in many years, Lu Chongkong, an elder of the Tianqing school. The emperor had personally come to the city gate to welcome him. Logically speaking, he did not have the right to do so. Xue Lingyun should be the one to welcome him. However, Xue Lingyun was in seclusion. Jiang Xiu estimated that she might not be able to come out of seclusion for at least 100 years. He's here. Jiang Xiu suddenly opened his eyes. The moment Jiang Xiu opened his eyes, Lu Chongkong stopped in his tracks. The surging air seemed to stop for a moment. What a familiar feeling. Could there be an old friend here? Chapter 502. The immortal king had the perception of a celestial being, and was more sensitive to everything than a celestial being. This was especially true for Lu Chongkong. This person was a genius who specialized in unorthodox methods. Even Jiang Xiu did not expect that when he involuntarily used the Tianqing school's secret technique to spy on him, he would immediately react. In the past, people said that sneezing meant that someone was thinking about you. However, Lu Chongkong could sense it even without sneezing. This is strange. This place is very far from Qingzhou. It's my first time here. Why would someone be here? Xue Xingjing bowed deeply. The emperor of Jialan, Xue Xingjing, pays his respects to the immortal king. Lu Chongkong was wearing a green robe. He looked middle-aged and ordinary, like a poor man. He did not look ostentatious. He was the only one in Tianqing school who did not take in many disciples, and did not have any trusted subordinates. To put it simply, this person was not good at forming cliques, and was a little dissociated from the sect. He was the most special existence among all the elders of Tianqing School. It was also because of this that he was only an elder and not a law enforcement elder. His status was actually not high. However, all of this was before Jiang Xiu's death. As for now, Jiang Xiu was not sure. Cheng Lingran looked pure and not greedy for vanity on the surface. What was the result? Everyone had a price. It was just a matter of whether or not the price was enough. Perhaps Lu Changkong was also the kind of person who hid it very well, and might even covet the position of the sect leader. Emperor of Jialan, forget it. He stood there casually. There was no earth-shattering sound or natural phenomenon. It was very different from the rumor of the immortal king's arrival. It was very much like returning to simplicity. His clothes and shoes were very simple. They were not even as good as what the commoners of the Jialan dynasty wore. This time, I came to the Jialan dynasty and disturbed you. Please forgive me. I dare not, Xue Xingjing said. It is the honor of the people of Jialan dynasty that the immortal king can come to our Jialan dynasty. Tianqing School is a top sect. We all look forward to it and hope that the immortal king can come a few more times. The ministers on the side all smiled kindly. Lu Changkong also smiled faintly and said, everyone says that Tianqing School flourished under sect leader Zhang's leadership, but it will definitely decline after this. It seems that Tianqing School's charm hasn't diminished. No matter how downhill Tianqing School was, it was still Tianqing School. It's not just that. Immortal King, please take a look. Over the past few days, everyone in our Jialan dynasty has been looking forward to your arrival. Countless geniuses are eagerly waiting for your guidance and test. As far as the eye could see, the streets on both sides were packed with people. They were all here to see him, the Celestial King. Many people were shouting excitedly, as if they had seen a star on earth. This was the first time Xue Xingjing had seen an immortal king, let alone ordinary people. I wonder how the immortal king will choose his disciples. Lu Changkong only smiled. The Tianqing School did not have a complete constitution for accepting disciples. It was very open in this aspect. However, because the masters had a high starting point and had high standards, they were stricter when it came to choosing disciples. They were afraid that they would be outdone. Therefore, the disciples who could enter the Tianqing School were all very talented. As for how they chose, it was completely up to the master's preferences. Of course, there were also some relative experiences. Those who are interested in coming to Tianqing School can just stand and let me choose. Xue Xingjing was stunned. That simple? Yes, that simple. Lu Changkong had expected his surprise. He believed that many people would be very surprised when they heard this. In order to make the Tianqing School look more professional, he said, of course, our previous disciples have already arrived. As long as they win against those of the same level, they are qualified to accept my selection. Oh. Everyone suddenly understood. Just this alone was difficult enough. The disciples of the Tianqing School were all geniuses. It was extremely difficult to win against him at the same level. No wonder he had only accepted 3 disciples after traveling to more than 30 dynasties. They must be geniuses among geniuses. Immortal King, please come to my Kalan Palace. I have already set up a welcoming banquet. Lu Changkong shook his head and said, there's no need for a banquet. Xue Xingjing was very disappointed. He had carefully prepared for this banquet. His descendants wanted to be the first to show their faces in front of this immortal king. If he did not come, wouldn't it be a waste? I was too rash. Please come to the palace, exalted immortal. Lu Changkong said. No, let's find a quiet place. Yes, then when will the disciple selection begin? I can get someone to set up the arena. Lu Changkong said. There's no need to trouble the Emperor of Kalan at this time. My disciple has already chosen a place. The seat has been set at the square Ling Tai Mountain. On the day of the disciple selection, I will go through Kalan Palace. Xue Xingjing was stunned. If he did not stay at his place, eat at his place, and even the arena was not set up in the palace, then wouldn't the royal family be just decorations? He wanted to speak, but the person in front of him was an elder of the Tianqing School. If he angered him, he was so anxious that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The officials who followed behind were overjoyed. They were worried that the emperor would use his status as a member of the royal family to suppress them. Now this immortal king's actions made everyone have the same chance. Only the true geniuses could stand out. That afternoon, a voice came from the temple of the square Lingtai mountain. The immortal king's secret technique entered everyone's ears, announcing that the Tianqing school had opened its doors to accept disciples. Young master, did you hear that? The Tianqing school has started accepting disciples. Yes, when are we going? The two maids' eyes were filled with anticipation. The guard Li Chang also stopped practicing his swordsmanship and walked towards the courtyard, staring at the wooden door. There's no hurry. In a few more days. Jiang Xiu's tone was very calm. There were many people in the Jialan dynasty. Even if the children of the royal family and aristocratic families went up to try their hands, it would take at least 10 days. He did not need to be anxious at all. But the maid still wanted to say something, but when she looked at the tightly shut door, she did not dare to say anything. The chubby girl went out to ask around. The Tianqing school had a very methodical way of accepting disciples. It was based on the household register of the Jialan dynasty. The selection was done one by one, and the imperial city was divided into many regions. On one hand, they could find out the door. On the other hand, they could also investigate the other party's background. Fortunately, I didn't go. It would have been useless if I had gone. However, many people went up the mountain, mainly to observe and see how strong the disciples of the Tianqing school were. Xiaoyu, inform your master that if he also wants to go to the square Lingtai mountain, he has to go with us. This is an order issued by the emperor, and it is also the rule of the Tianqing school. The housekeeper came over to inform the chubby girl. The Tianqing school was also very concerned about whether the background of the disciples was clean. 7 days later, Wang Xinya, Xiaoyu, Li Chang, and the others were all ready. They looked at the tightly shut door anxiously. Today was the day for the selection of their region. If they missed the time, they might not have another chance. Master hasn't come out yet? Li Chang walked around anxiously. He walked to the door several times and wanted to push it open, but he held himself back. In the room, Jiang Xiu's cultivation had reached a critical moment at the moment. The medicinal properties of the Bianhun pill were at their peak. Last night he had already shown signs of a breakthrough. However, because he was too rash in this short period of time, Jiang Xiu suppressed the time to be on the safe side. However, it just happened to be the time for the selection of disciples in his region. At this moment, the power in his body was surging wildly. Coupled with the influence of the Bianhun pill on his consciousness, Jiang Xiu was a little out of control at this moment. It was like driving a sports car with broken brakes. He could no longer stop. If he was a little careless, he might crash. Such a situation should not have happened. But Jiang Xiu was not familiar with the enlightened masters. The body structure of the enlightened masters was completely different from that of humans or immortals in the past. There were 206 bones in the human body, but Jiang Xiu now had more than 300. This was not very strange, because a baby had 99 more bones than an adult. It was just that as he grew up, many of his bones healed. Since Jiang Xiu was a heavenly god, this change was reasonable. However, the difficult thing was that his limbs and bones had undergone a huge change. It was like using an Android phone for 3,000 years, and suddenly changing to an Apple system. Other than Jiang Xiu, who was using the Jiang clan's name, many of the Jiang clan's disciples were going to go. If there was a date without a date, it would be a stroke of luck if they ran into it. Is he here yet? Why are so many of us waiting for him? I've already sent someone to do it. What are you doing? Jiang Xiu frowned. He was no longer as respectful to Jiang Xiu as before. Let's go and take a look. If he doesn't dare to go, then don't delay everyone. Chapter 503. When they arrived at Jiang Xiu's courtyard, the courtyard door was still tightly shut. It was quiet inside. In this Jiang residence, it was so unique. Everyone was rejected outside, as if it was high and mighty. Go knock on the door for me. This time, Jiang Chonghai personally gave the order. Open the door, open the door. The knocking on the door was hurried and violent. Xiaoya heard the sound and quickly ran over. As soon as the door opened, it was forcefully pushed open. What entered her eyes was a group of people from the Jiang family. There were about 20 to 30 people. It could be said that the ostentation was not small. What's wrong with your family's young master? He still hasn't come out. Do you want our whole family to wait for him alone? Quickly call him out for me. Xiaoya said awkwardly. Master, the young master is still in seclusion in the room. We've already called him, but there's no response. It's probably because he hasn't finished cultivating yet. Call him out even if he hasn't finished. Do you want your young master to delay today's matters? Xiaoya was also anxious. It was indeed not early. Master, please wait. This servant will go now. On the side, Jiang Haoshuan said impatiently, Hurry up, we won't wait if you're late. As he spoke, he glanced at the red line on the ground. Jiang Xiu had once said that no one was allowed to enter. This father really didn't believe in heresy today. He directly stepped over and said rudely, This young master will personally call him out. Jiang Haoshuan walked in. Elder Du, who was on the side, was afraid that he would be at a disadvantage, so he followed in. Then the others all followed in one after another. Using today's opportunity, they completely trampled on the rules that Jiang Xiu had set on their heads. Everyone. Xiaoya was extremely nervous. The young master was currently cultivating. If his mind was disturbed at a critical moment, it could easily cause his realm to become unstable and even drop. It's fine if this servant comes. Li Chang was completely confused at this time. Seeing this, Wang Xinya hurriedly ran to open the door of Jiang Xiu's room and closed it immediately. She glanced inside but didn't see Jiang Xiu. She called out nervously, Young master, young master. However, she saw that Jiang Xiu was in the bedroom, sitting cross-legged in meditation. The young master's bedroom could only be entered by maidservants. She was just an ordinary maidservant. Moreover, she was going to marry out in the future. To her, this was a forbidden area. She hurriedly knelt in front of him and raised her voice, Young master. Master, the other young masters and young ladies are all here. Today is the day of Tianqing School's enrollment. Wake up quickly. Jiang Xiu's face alternated between green and white. At the most critical moment of his breakthrough, his mind was disturbed. With a bang, the door was pushed open and the Jiang family rushed in. Fourth brother, what's wrong with you? The Tianqing School's enrollment is about to begin. If you don't want to go, you should let us know. Don't let the whole family wait for you. Jiang Xiu slowly opened his eyes. His expression was terrifyingly cold. The reminder was fake. The real reason was that they deliberately rushed in to disturb his cultivation. He opened his mouth and said coldly, Get out. Seeing that Jiang Xiu's face was pale, Jiang Haochuan couldn't help but sneer. His blood rushed in the opposite direction. He had achieved his goal. Fourth brother, hurry up. We'll wait outside. After these people left, Jiang Xiu's face became even paler. He stood up. Wang Xinya was guarding the line at the door of the bedroom and didn't dare to cross it. She just looked at Jiang Xiu nervously. When Jiang Xiu walked to her, Fang Gang tried to reach out to help Jiang Xiu. Young master, are you okay? Jiang Xiu gently shook his head. He freshened up a little with Wang Xinya's help and walked out of the room. The sun was shining brightly outside. The Jiang family was all waiting in his courtyard. Okay, we're finally out. Let's go. The master of the Jiang family sat in the carriage. The guards rode the horse and headed towards Sifang Lingtai Mountain. Even Madame Jiang was going today. A mere earth god dares to participate in the Tianqing School's assessment. He's not afraid of losing face, but our Jiang family is. Jiang Xiu's face was also cold. He only realized this after he came out with Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was using the reputation of the Jiang family. Originally, he couldn't wait for Jiang Xiu to go on stage and embarrass himself. Now he had mixed feelings. He wanted to embarrass Jiang Xiu, but he also wanted to protect the reputation of the Jiang family. It seems that his blood and qi rushed in just now, causing his realm to become unstable. Elder Du said, Indeed. He couldn't do it in the first place. Now that he's so seriously injured, he definitely won't have a chance. Jiang Chonghai said. Okay, let's not talk about him. How are your preparations? Father, we're all ready. Jiang Chonghai looked at his children, his eyes full of anticipation and excitement. So far, only imperial grandson Yang has barely won. Now, it's not only about entering Tianqing school, but also about the reputation of our Jialan dynasty. His Majesty's face has turned green these days. Even if we can't win, we'll hold on for as long as we can. Yes. His children agreed one after another. Their faces were full of anticipation, and their eyes were shining. They always felt that they might be the lucky one who stood out from the rest. Soon, the Jiang family arrived at Xifang Lingtai Mountain. It would be a bit slow to ascend here. The group all cast spells and flew up the mountain. Some rode on flying swords. Jiang Xiu looked up and saw that the mountain was very lively. From time to time, there were sword immortals and unaffiliated cultivators flying around. Lu Chongkong had made the right choice in choosing this place. Here he could be free and unrestrained. If this was arranged in the palace, there would be a search in and out, and many people would be stopped outside. After entering the open space of the temple hall, there were servants from Tianqing school registering. Only those with relevant household registration could register. Jiang Xiu was with the Jiang family. There were a total of 21 people from the Jiang family who had registered. When Jiang Xiu arrived, they had all finished registering. You just need to fill in your name, age and realm. Jiang Xiu obviously didn't know that servant. He also didn't know Jiang Xiu. He had probably never seen the original Tianqing school principal Jiang Luoxia in his life. Jiang Xiu age, 24 realm, early stage lower god. That person looked up at Jiang Xiu in astonishment. You're a divine cultivator? Yes. At the side, Li Chang and the two maidservants became nervous. Could it be that the young master's qualifications were revoked just because he was a god cultivator? The Sky Motion sect was a cultivation sect, so they didn't know whether or not they accepted god cultivators. You can go. Our Tianqing school doesn't accept divine cultivators. Sure enough, Li Chang and the maid's expressions all changed. Jiang Xiu, however, was calm and composed. What right do you have to ask me to go? Whoosh. Hearing this, the surrounding people were in an uproar. He dared to go against the immortal of Tianqing school. The servant was also stunned, and his face turned green and white. He indeed didn't have the right. He was just a servant. In Tianqing school he was very lowly. It was just that when he left the mountain gate, everyone was respectful and flattering, which made him arrogant. He really thought that he had become some kind of immortal. I said no, so no. He didn't want to lose face, so he stubbornly held on. Jiang Xiu said, Tianqing school has never banned divine cultivators from accepting disciples. Could it be that you are the founder of Tianqing school, and want to help Tianqing school change the rules? Jiang Xiu's sect master's power was so frightening, and his words were so sharp that the servant's face turned pale. However, you're not worthy. If you insist on not helping me register, then I'll go ask Lu Chongkong when you became the sect master. Clang. The servant was so scared that he almost fell from his seat. He had never seen someone as domineering as Jiang Xiu. Even the Emperor of Kalin was very polite when he saw him. It's not that it's impossible. It's just that my sect doesn't have many divine cultivation-related techniques. I'm afraid that even if you enter the sect, it won't be easy for you to develop. I'm afraid that it will delay you. Jiang Xiu sneered. Then I'll have to thank you. Hurry up and register. Of course, there were divine cultivators in Tianqing school. This was passed down from their ancestors. However, just like the entire immortal martial continent, the divine cultivators of the human race had declined, and the Tianqing school could not save them. Over time, everyone thought that there were no divine cultivators in Tianqing school. In fact, they existed, and their number was no less than that of white people. They occupied a peak alone. Because of the different cultivation systems, they faded out of sight. I've helped you register. Early stage lower heavenly god, right? That's the same as early stage lower heavenly immortal. After saying that, he handed Jiang Xiu a token. Li Chang and the servant girls all heaved a sigh of relief. Not far away, a young girl stood, looking at everything with a strange expression. It was Shengguan Zhaorong who had left. Chapter 504. Between the peaks of the four-sided Lingtai mountain, there were many floating peaks. The entrance examinations for each level were held there. Each floating peak was guarded by a disciple of the Tianqing school of a level, accepting challenges from all sides. As long as one won, they would have the opportunity to meet Lu Changkong. So far, the only winner was the imperial grandson Shui Yank. Even if he entered the encirclement and met Lu Changkong, he might not necessarily be chosen. Xinya, I see Sister Zhaorong. She's here too. Is that so? Wang Xinya turned her head and saw Shengguan Zhaorong walking towards their resting area. Although the Shengguan family was in trouble, the two young masters of the Yi family and the Dugu family were still thinking about her. She also had some old friends, so it wouldn't be difficult for her to come here. It really is Sister Zhaorong. Young master. Shengguan Zhaorong bowed to Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu was her previous owner. It was fine if she didn't meet him, but if she didn't greet him, it would be impolite. There's no need for that. Since you're already free, you have nothing to do with me. You don't have to bow when you see me. Jiang Xiu glanced at her indifferently and shifted his gaze to the contest on the floating peak. He wanted to see if he knew those disciples. Unfortunately, other than his own disciples, Jiang Xiu didn't know much about the other disciples of the Sky Motion sect. However, he couldn't be blamed. After all, it was impossible for the boss of a big company to know the workers on the production line. Shengguan Zhaorong saw that Jiang Xiu was still cold to her, and felt a little unnatural. She said, "Young master's appearance seems to have changed a lot. It seems that you've had a change in circumstances." Jiang Xiu asked, "You're looking for me for something?" Shengguan Zhaorong pondered for a moment, then said, "It's nothing. I'm just grateful for young master's kindness, so I came to catch up. I don't know if I've disturbed young master's mood." Jiang Xiu had no interest in someone who had left him. Hee. The Jiang family's resting area was specially chosen on a floating peak that was closer to their family members. This group consisted of Upper Earth immortals, and Jiang Haochuan was in this group. Originally, Jiang Xiu should have been in this group as well. "My turn?" Jiang Haochuan asked when he saw that the Tianqing school had won again. His face was not as calm and arrogant as it was at home. His face was pale and he looked nervous. "Yes, it's your turn." Everyone in the Jiang family focused their attention on him. Many people waved their fists at him and cheered for him. The Jiang family's first shot must be fired. It would be good if they won. Even if they couldn't win, they must show the glory of the Jiang family. So fast. He was very clear about his own capabilities. It was just like an examinee going to the examination hall. Whether he was confident or not was something that could be seen at a glance. If you studied well and prepared well, you would be able to be calm before the examination. Otherwise, you would become very nervous. I haven't observed enough of the opponent's strength yet. Everyone was muttering in their hearts at first, but after hearing Jiang Haochuan's words, they suddenly felt that it was very reasonable. Only by knowing oneself and the enemy could one win 100 battles. Indeed, they had to go on the stage as soon as they arrived. Without time to observe the opponent, they would be at a disadvantage. Jiang Haochuan looked at Jiang Xiu. "Laoci, you go first. It's time to win glory for the Jiang family." "Yes, Laoci, you go first. Fourth young master, it's up to you," old Madame Du said. "Laoci, I don't expect you to win, but you must do your best to fight for more time. You must also fight for the opponent to use his full strength, and lay a solid foundation for your third brother's victory. Don't worry, if your third brother enters the Tianqing school, the family will not treat you badly." Jiang Chonghai also looked at Jiang Xiu. He also hoped that Jiang Xiu would go first and help his son get a good feel of the situation. He said, "Your grandmother is right. If your third brother succeeds, the family will not treat you badly." Becoming a disciple of the Tianqing school was like a carp leaping over the dragon gate. The entire Jialan dynasty would look at the Jiang family in a new light. Becoming a marquis was just around the corner. When that time came, would they still have to worry about not being able to get resources? On the side, Li Chang and the two servant girls were indignant. Why did their young master have to go first? Could it be that they couldn't let the third young master go first and scout for their young master? No matter how they looked at it, their young master was much stronger than the third young master. But they were just servants. How could they have the right to speak? Jiang Xiu's indifferent gaze swept over. I can't go on the stage. The opponent won't let me go either. Why? However, when it was his turn, the Jiang family didn't mention who the Jiang family was. On this point, the Tianqing school allowed the Jiang family to adjust themselves internally. You're not willing, right? Jiang Xiu said. It's all the same. Whether I'm unwilling or have no choice, in short, even if I go down, the disciples of the Tianqing school won't fight with me because I'm not in this group. Li Chang and the two servant girls' eyes suddenly lit up. The fat servant girl almost cried out. Yes, the young master had advanced. What happened that day was true. The young master was at the divine realm, not some earth god. I'm in the lesser divine realm group. What? When the Jiang family heard this, their expressions all changed. They widened their eyes in disbelief. How long had it been? It had only been a month, right? He really advanced? Li Chang and the two servant girls saw old Madame Jiang, old Du, Jiang Chonghai, Jiang Haoxuan, and the others' dumbfounded expressions. It was as if they had seen a ghost. Who told you to look down on people? Old Madame Jiang said. Old Fourth, the opponent is the Tianqing school. This can't be faked. If it's discovered, no one can save you. She absolutely did not believe that Jiang Xiu could advance to the divine realm in a short month. However, who would be so stupid to challenge a higher level? Even if it was fake, it would be at the earth level. Humph. Jiang Xiu no longer paid attention to this family. Is there anyone from the Jiang family going to fight? If not, we'll go to the next round. The disciples of the Tianqing school asked. Yes. Jiang Haochuan hurriedly stood up and flew towards the floating peak. After landing, he bowed to his opponent. The Jiang family servants on the sidelines all shouted, Third young master, you can do it. The ignorant servant girl Xiao Yu asked, Will the third young master win? Jiang Xiu could not help but laugh. Ignorant and stupid to the extreme. Even a trash like Jiang Haochuan could win against a disciple of the Tianqing school. This disciple should just find a latrine pit and drown himself. Shangguan Zhaorong secretly glanced at Jiang Xiu, her face revealing a thoughtful expression. It had not even been a month since she left the Jiang family, and Jiang Xiu had actually crossed the heaven-level barrier and become a divine realm expert. This person's talent was truly monstrous. But why did he choose to become a divine cultivator? Aya. Suddenly, there was a scream. Shangguan Zhaorong turned to look at the field, and could not help but widen her eyes. She saw Jiang Haochuan fly out and fall to the ground, wailing in pain. He had already lost. This was too fast. She only glanced at Jiang Xiu, and he was defeated in such a short time. It was really in the blink of an eye. Lost, we lost. The people of the Jiang family were depressed. They felt their cheeks burning. They had seen people lose quickly, but they had never seen someone lose so quickly. They lost in seconds. They felt that the eyes of the people around them were full of ridicule and mockery. The old lady and Jiang Chonghai really wanted to find a hole to hide in. One must know that the emperor and the others were sitting on the main peak in the distance. They must have seen this scene. This time, the Jiang family really lost all face. It hurts. Jiang Chonghai was so angry that the corners of his mouth were twitching. What a disgrace. Sorry to offend you. The disciple of the Tianqing school bowed slightly to Jiang Haochuan. It was also the first time he had seen someone cry out in pain after losing. These rich people sigh. The Jiang family's early-stage lower divine realm group. Originally, there was an elder brother, but that brother had passed the age limit. It's my turn. Jiang Xiu stood up from his seat. Li Chang and the two servant girls looked at him nervously. This battle was also related to their future and fate. Jiang Xiu's silhouette flashed and flew towards the floating peak. Young master, do your best. Old Madame Jiang fiercely glared over and said, What are you doing your best for? Haven't you lost enough face? The two servant girls lowered their heads in fright. Old Du, do you think Old Fourth can win? He had seen Jiang Xiu's intelligence. His intelligence was close to that of a demon. To be honest, if Jiang Xiu personally fought and had that kind of insight, he really would have a chance. But today, Jiang Xiu had suffered heavy internal injuries because of cultivation. His strength would be greatly reduced, and it might even cause his internal injuries to erupt. Old Du shook his head and said, "Impossible." Chapter 505. As soon as Jiang Xiu stepped onto the stage, Emperor Shui Xingjing, who was sitting in the direction of the main peak, was attracted to him. Although Jiang Xiu's appearance had changed a little, the general feeling was still there. Moreover, he did not recognize Jiang Xiu based on his appearance. The fourth son of the Jiang family was young Master Jiang, whom he had arranged to stay with the Jiang family. "He's here too." Shui Xingjing smiled coldly. In his opinion, the only person in the entire Jialan dynasty who was qualified to enter Tianqing school was his grandson. He did not want a second one. If there was, it had to be a descendant of the royal family. Otherwise, he would not be able to let his grandson dominate the scene. Everyone had vanity. As the emperor, Shui Xingjing was no exception. He cared about his face and loved ostentation. Meanwhile, Lu Changkong, who was resting with his eyes closed in the temple, also opened his eyes at this time. He felt that the aura of this disciple who had just appeared was somewhat familiar. Although he seemed indifferent to the outside world, in fact, no one who appeared could escape his eyes. However, whether the aura was familiar or not was only a feeling. Unless he was very familiar with it, he would not be able to recognize it. He stood up, walked through the door, and stood in front of the eaves. His gaze passed through the layers of obstacles and landed on Jiang Xiu. His eyes suddenly widened, and he was extremely shocked. For the first time, he lost his composure. "Sect Master Jiang. No, that's not right." "Ha. It should be that the person is similar. In the great wide world, there are even people who look exactly the same, let alone people who look alike." Lu Changkong's gaze was fixed on Jiang Xiu. "They don't look alike, but their aura is too similar. He's actually a god cultivator. Then it's really impossible." However, Jiang Xiu still piqued Lu Changkong's interest. A person who had Jiang Luoxia's arrogance and cold eyes. Even if his talent was not as good as Jiang Luoxia's, he might still have Jiang Luoxia's spirit. "Advance bravely, cut through all obstacles. Who else can do it but me?" Jiang Xiu looked at the Tianqing school disciple in front of him, and couldn't help but find it funny. The dignified Tianqing school overseer actually had to face such a lowly disciple and say, "You're no match for me." That disciple was stunned for a moment. He had been standing here for 7 or 8 days and had defeated hundreds and thousands of people. Which one of them didn't come up to the stage with respect and caution? This was the first time he had met such an arrogant person. "Haha, you are very confident." Jiang Xiu smiled coldly. He was too familiar with the methods of Tianqing school, let alone these little guys. It was no exaggeration to say that when they raised their butts, Jiang Xiu knew what they were going to fart. It's not too late to admit defeat. Facing the people from Tianqing school, Jiang Xiu felt an inexplicable anger. The overseer didn't recognize him when he was right in front of him. He deserved to be beaten. In Jiang Xiu's heart, of course, he was still brooding about losing the position of overseer. That position carried the dreams of his master and countless of his fellow disciples. It was lost just like that, and the reason behind it was also fishy. The 60-year deadline was not up yet, but they actually stripped him of the position of overseer in the name of his death. This was actually treason. If they wanted to replace him as overseer early, more than half of the law enforcement elders would have to agree. Moreover, these law enforcement elders had a close relationship with him. He had to find out how this happened and how many people had betrayed him. This anger was also directed to these disciples. "Admit defeat? I think you're too arrogant. Take this." This was also the first time he took the initiative to attack. Jiang Xiu saw that he was using the sky-traversing 9 hidden sword technique. This sword technique was the Tianqing school's intermediate-level sword technique. It was not bad, but in the eyes of overseer, it was really not enough to get started. Moreover, there were many problems in practicing it. Jiang Xiu really wanted to ask who his master was. Before he could use the sword technique, Jiang Xiu had already slashed with his saber. The restriction of using the saber after the sword technique, and it happened to be the time when Overseer used the sword technique, made it very awkward for him to use it and change his moves. Lu Changkong was shocked. What a sharp insight. There was a kind of person who was born as a genius in immortal martial arts. This kind of genius was not only reflected in the speed of cultivation, but also in the ability to deal with the enemy, predict the timing of the attack, and the direction of the attack. Even if masters did not use their strength, why could they easily defeat people weaker than them? This was the ability. For a true genius, not only was the speed of cultivation important, but the ability to deal with the enemy was even more important. Lu Changkong did not know how fast Jiang Xiu's cultivation was, but his sensitivity in dealing with the enemy surprised him. Unknowingly, he had already crowned Jiang Xiu with the word genius. His opponent still used the sword technique. Lu Changkong shook his head and felt somewhat disappointed with his disciple's response. He had already lost the initiative. If he used force, he would only continue to make mistakes. Moreover, if he used the sword technique forcefully, he would not be able to fully release its power. The sword technique was suppressed by the saber light, and the feeling was unbearable. It was like constipation. Before the power could be released, it was suppressed back. Suddenly, the uncomfortable feeling that was pressing down on him lightened. Looking up, Jiang Xiu's face revealed a strange expression, and his complexion turned pale. This was Lu Changkong, who had been through hundreds of battles, knew that Jiang Xiu's body was injured and had been triggered. Jiang Xiu frowned. Once he used his divine power, the power in his body would surge uncontrollably. When one's cultivation was interrupted, one's qi and blood would surge in the opposite direction. This was a big taboo. Before one's cultivation was organized, it would definitely cause great damage. It might even leave behind indelible sequelae. And all of this was because of the Jiang family. You seem to have a problem with your cultivation. Jiang Xiu snorted. It's more than enough to deal with you. Don't try to show off. Your condition is very serious. If you fight with me again, your cultivation level will become unstable. It will be difficult for you to regain your cultivation level after dropping from the heaven tier. Lu Changkong could also see that. He was very curious about what Jiang Xiu would choose. If he insisted on fighting, regardless of whether he won or lost, he could almost foresee that his cultivation level would drop. Cut the crap. The hair on Jiang Xiu's body stood up. With a loud bang, the power in his body burst forth. He wanted to end this quickly. For a moment, his long hair flew up and his clothes fluttered. The demeanor of a powerful expert was on full display. Lu Changkong couldn't help but take a step forward. This aura, this tone, this expression, he seemed to have seen the monstrous Jiang Luoxia who ruled the world. If the person in front of him wasn't a divine cultivator and a saber cultivator, Lu Changkong would almost dare to say that he was Jiang Luoxia. Are there really two people who are so alike? Violent power surged. The power in Jiang Xiu's body surged even more. It was difficult for him to control himself. His demonic state was on full display. Die. He swung the saber in his hand. Rip. Countless streaks of light shot out from the blade of the saber. The man was shocked. This power was like a stormy sea, pouring over him like thousands of rivers and seas. He almost collapsed to the ground under the pressure. He was shocked by Jiang Xiu's saber technique, but Jiang Xiu's power was weaker than his. Jiang Xiu had just entered the early stage of lower celestial god, while his opponent had been stuck in the early stage of lower celestial immortal for many years, and was about to break through. Moreover, Jiang Xiu had never refined his divine power in order to improve his cultivation level. As a result, the purity of his divine power was slightly lacking. His aura and determination are both amazing. Lu Changkong once again felt Jiang Luoxia's shadow in him. Under such circumstances, even if it were him, it would be difficult for him to choose. If he gave up the fight to preserve his cultivation level, he would lose the opportunity to enter Tianqing school. However, if he insisted on fighting, it would be good if he won, but what if he lost? For a slim chance, he dared to sacrifice so much. Lu Changkong asked himself if he had the courage to do so. Crazy. Lu Changkong spat out a word. In the arena, Jiang Xiu's eyes kept flashing. Lose! Boom, boom, boom. A violent force burst out uncontrollably. On the floating peak, the rocks were blasted apart. Just by making a move, the saber aura wreaked havoc in the surroundings. This would undoubtedly weaken the power of the saber move. There was only one explanation for this situation. Jiang Xiu could not control his own power. The saber technique had gone out of control. Pooh! Jiang Xiu spat out a mouthful of blood. The saber aura slashed down fiercely. Die! The disciple on the opposite side was so frightened by Jiang Xiu's ferocity that his eyes widened. That strong murderous aura made his heart tremble involuntarily. Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 506. When the saber aura erupted to its peak, it did not slash everything. Instead, it collapsed at that moment, just like when a wave swept up to the highest altitude. It lost all support and collapsed from the sky. Scattered, it collapsed into nothingness. The saber aura that had dissipated seemed to be shocking, but it had no lethality. The power in Jiang Xiu's body could not be sustained. There was no other way. No matter how strong a person was, they could not withstand the reverse flow of blood and qi. His realm was very unstable. Jiang Xiu even felt his soul shrinking and his body trembling. His realm was about to drop. How painful was it to fall in realm? Many people gambled and won all night, but in the end they lost everything. This was the feeling. In an instant, many years of hard work had gone down the drain. The blow to the body and mind was unimaginable. Jiang Xiu had been rampant all his life, but he had never encountered a situation like this. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on him. He had lost completely. Not only had he lost the competition, but he had also lost his economy. He had fallen from sky god to earth god. Ha, this fool. He knew that his blood and qi were in reverse flow, but he still forced himself to attack. Serves him right. Jiang Haochuan, who had just cried out in pain, was now happier than anyone else. Jiang Xiu was unlucky, and he felt as if he had won. You brought this upon yourself. Grandma Jiang on the side echoed. It will be difficult to cultivate back after falling in realm. I'm afraid that the fourth young master's cultivation path will be cut off from now on. Old Man Du looked very regretful. After all, Jiang Xiu's first saber strike had once again shocked him. He did not know if his regret was real or fake for such a genius to fall. Originally, that saber strike was a bit interesting, but unfortunately. The Kalan Emperor on the main peak said. Yes, for immortal cultivators, the heaviest blow is to fall in realm. Moreover, it is a major realm drop. It is very likely that he will be punished by the heavens and cut off from his cultivation path, Shui Yank, the imperial grandson said. His status was now different. He could directly step over the princes and stand beside the emperor as the imperial grandson. Young master. The two maidservants were about to cry. Li Chang's expression was also incomparably dignified. Shangguan Zhaorong gently covered her mouth. He had lost the bet. The battle here had attracted a lot of attention. Seeing Jiang Xiu's experience, some sympathized with him. Some laughed at him for overestimating himself. And some took pleasure in his misfortune. Lu Changkong let out a long sigh of relief. At that moment, he actually hoped that Jiang Xiu would succeed. Unfortunately, he was not a top genius like Jiang Luoxia. Since he was not, and his cultivation level had dropped, then he had no fate with Tianqing School. If it was an immortal cultivator, Lu Changkong would have considered it. However, the other party was a god cultivator. Lu Changkong did not know many god cultivation techniques, so he could not help him at all. He also could not help him solve the problem of his realm. Wrong fate. This was a sentence that experts would often say when taking in disciples. Missing out on fate was a kind of affirmation to the person seeking a master, but it was also an obvious and firm rejection. Of course, some of them felt sorry for Jiang Xiu, but most of them were disappointed. Tianqing School's disciples had to do things that ordinary people could not do. Otherwise, they would not be qualified to enter Tianqing School. You lost. That person no longer felt a trace of pressure. The blade light above his head was gone. He had won without standing, But there was no contempt in his eyes when he looked at Jiang Xiu. Lost, Jiang Xiu's face was pale, and there was blood at the corner of his mouth. It's too early for you to be happy. After saying that, Jiang Xiu sat down cross-legged, reached out and took a pill. No one knew what kind of pill it was, and began to meditate and adjust his breath. What does he want to do? Does he want to consolidate his realm on the spot? Everyone's faces were full of suspicion. However, if he wanted to consolidate his realm, it would take at least a few months or even a few years. Jiang Haoshuan said, even if you want to consolidate your realm, you have to get down from the arena and go back to your home to slowly consolidate it. Do you want everyone to watch you consolidate your realm? Who does he think he is? Does the whole world revolve around him? He shouted. Law enforcement judge, we can't let him consolidate his realm on the spot. We should drive him away. There are still so many of us waiting to participate in the selection. The servant who was reprimanded by Jiang Xiu just now was also one of the law enforcement officers. Seeing this situation, he immediately stood up and said, do you need me to go over and drive him away? Just now he was reprimanded in front of so many people. Now he finally had a chance to take revenge. However, at this moment, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared in the sky. The sky was clear for thousands of miles, and clouds rolled over. It felt as if time was passing quickly. At the same time, a huge cloud vortex formed in the sky. Under the sunlight, the clouds appeared to be fiery red. It was a rare fiery cloud. This, Lu Changkong's eyes changed. He thought of a possibility, and his face became filled with disbelief. Boom. The fiery clouds in the sky suddenly poured into Jiang Xiu's body. He was like the core of the cloud vortex. For a moment, the wind whistled in a few hundred meters around him. The red clouds filled the sky, and the entire world was illuminated in a fiery red color. How is this possible? He can't even withstand the sword light. How can he trigger such a huge phenomenon? Soon, Jiang Xiu was enveloped by the fiery cloud vortex. Could it be? The Callan Emperor couldn't help but slowly stand up from his seat. He couldn't believe it. This is trying to comprehend the law while breaking through his current realm. Not only is he not consolidating his realm, but he's also trying to break through? Xue Xingjing couldn't believe it. This was too crazy, too unbelievable. What? Xue Yank, who was beside him, suddenly looked at her grandfather. How is this possible? This is impossible. He will destroy himself if he does this. This scene shocked everyone. Impossible, impossible. Within the fiery clouds, Jiang Xiu's aura condensed again and continued to rise. It was like the fiery clouds outside were gathering more and more. In the end, it soared into the sky and engulfed the entire sky. There was no way to imagine that a person whose realm was unstable and was about to fall would actually pry into the heavenly fire law and use the power of the heavens to forcefully break through to the next realm. It's impossible for him to succeed. Wishful thinking. Arrogant to the extreme. Many people express great anger towards Jiang Xiu's actions. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar suddenly came from the fiery clouds. This roar was very low at first, but towards the end, it was like a rock soaring into the sky. The sound shook hundreds of miles, and the aura swallowed tens of thousands of miles like a tiger. The entire four-direction Spirit Mountain shook because of this, and the rocks and gravel under the floating peaks fell one after another. No, this doesn't make sense. Grandma Jiang cried out involuntarily. Everyone in the Jiang family was completely stunned at this moment. Li Chang was so shocked that his eyes were about to explode. The two little girls were so excited that they were about to cry. I told you, it's too early for you to be happy. Suddenly, an incomparably sharp silver blade light shone out from within the fiery clouds. An incomparably bright figure flashed out from within, and his terrifying eyes carried a cold light that looked disdainfully at the world. Take another blade of mine. Boom. The blade light tore through the sky, and the air was like a thin thread that was cut inch by inch as it slashed down from the sky. How is this possible? His opponent was completely stunned at this moment. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's aura was like a rainbow. His hair was flying like flames on top of his head, and his clothes were fluttering in the wind. The blade light was about to crush heaven and earth. Strong, crazy, and demonic. At this moment, he was so scared that his liver and guts were torn apart. How could he still have the courage to fight? A sense of powerlessness arose in his heart. Rumble, rumble. He really broke through, and under such difficult circumstances at that, and in an instant. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was already a middle-stage lower heavenly god. Jiang Haochuan stared blankly at the godlike man in the field. He actually did it. Not only did he do it, but he also rose from the earth god to the middle-stage lower heavenly god in the short span of a month. His current realm was already the same as his. This kind of speed was unparalleled in the world. He lowered his head in shame and said, "Father, you're right. Fourth brother is such a peerless genius. We should put all of the family's resources on him." Jiang Chonghai was dumbfounded. "Put your sister, do you think I want to?" Grandma Jiang was completely stunned. Her face turned green and white. She had lost the 3-month agreement. Chapter 507. At this moment, Jiang Xiu was like a saber. Wherever the saber went, there was nothing it could not overcome. No one could describe this moment. The power of this saber, under this momentum, could only bow down. Grandma Jiang stood up uncontrollably, then sat back down absent-mindedly. Regardless of whether Jiang Xiu could defeat his opponent or not, his realm was already at the middle stage of the lower celestial god realm. She had lost. She had completely lost. How could it be? How could it be? No one had ever been able to advance from the upper earth god realm to the middle stage of the lower celestial god realm in a month. No one had ever done it. Even Jiang Luoxia, the sect master of the Tianqing school, who was highly revered back then, had not done it. He really advanced. When the saber light fell, nothing else could be seen. Under the powerful saber intent, everything was suppressed and weakened. The blocking sword light was no different from the dust in the air. It shattered instantly, unable to withstand a single blow. The saber light passed through the opponent's body and slashed fiercely on the ground. Boom, boom. Saber chi burst forth. Seeing his opponent's rotting clothes being blown away by the wind, but the person standing there safe and sound, panic, astonishment, and fear were written all over his face. His eyes were opened so wide that they almost fell out of their sockets. "You've lost." When the low voice came, Jiang Xiu had already turned around. Putting aside his strength, just his personality, aura, and courage, Jiang Xiu shocked him like never before. The person in front of him did not look like a low-level celestial god at all. Instead, he looked like a high and mighty divine king who ruled over the life and death of all things. He won. He broke through at the last minute and defeated his opponent? The entire place was silent as they stared at Jiang Xiu. Their hearts were filled with admiration for his arrogance and unruliness, as well as his decisiveness. Unknowingly, this person's elegant demeanor was like his hair and robes that fluttered in the wind. So strong. Jiang Xiu's strength was not strength, but the strength of his heart and the strength of his spiritual will. He actually won. She didn't know why, but logically speaking, if such a situation really happened, Grandma Jiang should be happy and ecstatic. The Jiang family had such an amazing disciple. When one person achieved the Tao, all his chickens and dogs would ascend to heaven. The Jiang family would also have a meteoric rise, but Grandma Jiang just couldn't be happy. How could this be? Jiang Chonghai was dumbfounded. He had a very bad impression of Jiang Xiu. He thought that Jiang Xiu had lost the emperor's favor and would never be able to make a comeback. However, he did not expect that Jiang Xiu would advance by one major realm and one minor realm in just 1 month. He even defeated the disciples of Tianqing school. Not to mention the emperor's grace. Even the emperor would want his grace. Demon, Xue Jingsheng spat out these words after a long time. He had been paying close attention to Jiang Xiu, so of course he had heard about the matter of the 3-month agreement. Originally, it was impossible for the family to fight amongst themselves, but now, a peerless genius had appeared. Just this talent alone was enough to surpass him, the Emperor of Kalin. Cold sweat kept breaking out on his forehead. Did the ancestor bring him to Kalin because of his talent? Now he had forcefully pushed Jiang Xiu out. Thinking of this, he broke out in a cold sweat. How was he going to explain to the ancestor when he came out of seclusion? To miss out on such a genius, was this a loss that he, the emperor, could bear? His eyes bulged, and he felt that his position as the emperor might be over. This child is extraordinary. I only heard that the Jiang family had an illegitimate child, but I didn't expect him to be so talented. Even the proud Shui Yank was shocked. He didn't know that Jiang Xiu was still an earth god a month ago. Shui Xingjing looked at his grandson, and his eyes lit up. Yes, there was also Yan Ku. He had also won. As long as Yan Ku also became a disciple of Tianxing school, he could make up for his mistakes. He won. The young master won. The two girls were overjoyed. It was as if they could see the sky motion sect waving at them. Li Chang was also extremely excited. His hand that was holding the sword was trembling. He could see his own bright future. Shengguan Zhaorong was stunned. When she stepped out of the Jiang family, she looked back and was reluctant to leave. She was a girl who was pushed forward by fate. When faced with the choice of life, she suddenly made such a big decision and felt uneasy. She faintly felt that she might have made a wrong decision. She was really wrong. The mysterious, indifferent, and magnanimous young master turned out to be such an amazing genius. Young Master Jiang. Congratulations. Seeing that Jiang Xiu had returned, everyone present congratulated him one after another. They hoped that they could form a relationship with this genius from Hung Tian Empire. Meanwhile, the way the people looked at the Jiang clan changed. They were extremely envious. The Jiang family is going to be rich. However, the Jiang family did not look happy at all. They hated Jiang Xiu, and those who knew were not happy at all. In fact, he had nothing to do with them. How could this happiness come from? It would be good if it was not a disaster. Mr. Jiang, congratulations. Jiang Chonghai was almost crying as he thanked him. Others did not know and thought that he was happy and excited. They all showed kind smiles, and their eyes were full of envy. Young master, we won. Xiaoye was a little bolder. Seeing that Jiang Xiu had returned, she spoke up. Are we going to Tianxing school? Jiang Xiu's face was still indifferent. For him, this was nothing to be happy about. Winning this game only proved that your talent met the requirements of Tianxing school. If you wanted to enter Tianxing school, the most important thing was to be able to pass Lu Changkong. He was the key. Congratulations, young master. Shangguan Zhaorong bowed and congratulated Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu did not think much of it, but Shangguan Zhaorong continued. Young master, Zhaorong wants to return to your side and go to Tianxing school with you. I don't know if young master will still accept Zhaorong. As soon as she said this, Li Chang and the two servant girls all quieted down. Seeing that the future was uncertain, you left. Seeing that the young master had become rich, you wanted to come back. You did not want to take any risks. Although the two servant girls had a good impression of Shangguan Zhaorong, they were a little disgusted at this moment. Jiang Xiu said, Do you think you can return to my side? Shangguan Zhaorong said, I regret it. From the moment I stepped out of the Jiang family, I have regretted it. If young master can forgive Zhaorong's mistake, Zhaorong will be loyal to you in the future. Jiang Xiu said, Haven't you heard of a saying? It's called once unfaithful, 100 times unfaithful. Shangguan Zhaorong's tender body trembled and the confidence on her face faded. She boasted that her appearance was outstanding. Even the young masters of the Yi family and the Dugu family were jealous of her. She believed that Jiang Xiu would also be moved by her. She did not expect that he would refuse so straightforwardly. She felt that her self-confidence was shattered by Jiang Xiu at this moment. This servant is not unfaithful to young master. After I left the Jiang family, I did not seek refuge with anyone. Jiang Xiu knew that she was waiting for a good price. So what? Shangguan Zhaorong said. So young master should accept me again. What if I insist? Shangguan Zhaorong smiled lightly. Her smile was very beautiful, elegant and refined, but also had a bit of charm. It had to be said that she was a very beautiful woman. No wonder the two noblest young masters fought for her. She whispered in Jiang Xiu's ear. Then Zhaorong can only take risks. When Zhaorong left the Jiang family, I inadvertently heard the conversation between Jiang Darren and the housekeeper. Then I investigated some things these days and confirmed one thing. Young master is not Jiang Daren's illegitimate child. Jiang Xiu still did not care. So what? Shangguan Zhaorong said. Tianqing school pays attention to talent when accepting disciples, but they are also worried that enemy sects will send out spies. Young master's identity is fake. Do you think that Tianqing school's elder will still accept you? Jiang Xiu turned his head to look at her. He suddenly felt that this unreasonably beautiful girl was real. Not only was she a flower vase, but she was also quite scheming. The investigation was very clear, and it was good to catch you. But you were wrong about one thing. Shangguan Zhaorong froze. What is it? Jiang Xiu said. The only thing you were wrong about was that the person you threatened was me, Jiang Xiu. You don't understand me. I am not moved by force or persuasion. The only thing that can make me change my mind is your death. Shangguan Zhaorong's expression became very ugly, and the indifference on her beautiful face disappeared. The person was already dead, so what was the use of dying to show one's resolve? The fourth young master of the Jiang family, Jiang Xiu, Tianqing school's elder invites you. Jiang Xiu smiled. If you can prove that you really regret it, maybe I will take you to Tianqing school. Chapter 508. Looking at Jiang Xiu's back as he left, Shangguan Zhaorong's face turned ugly. Her eyes were filled with sadness and regret. This was a great opportunity, but she missed it in the end. Wang Xinya and Xiaoya looked at her, and felt that she was a little pitiful. Pitiful people must also be hateful. If she hadn't heartlessly abandoned them back then, how could she have lost the glory and respect that was about to come today? Sister Zhaorong. Shangguan Zhaorong squeezed out a bitter smile and smiled at them. She smiled at how lucky these two girls were to have followed a good master. After staying in the Heaven Motion sect for a few years, perhaps even the children of the imperial family in the capital would marry them. Their value would increase by 100 times. Compared to their background, they had really become phoenixes. Are you okay? Shangguan Zhaorong shook her head and said, I'm fine. Her gaze fell in the direction where Jiang Xiu had gone, and she secretly made up her mind. If Jiang Xiu could really enter Tianqing school, she would take him with her even if she had to die together with him. Jiang Xiu entered the temple and found that the Emperor of Kalan, Shui Xingjing, and the imperial grandson, Shui Yank, were already there. The other people were the people from Tianqing school. Lu Changkong was standing at the head of the table. He stood there calmly just like before. The past 60 years might be a lifetime for mortals, but for cultivators, it was just a short moment, just like the snap of a finger. He still looked the same as before, not changing at all. At this moment he was sizing up Jiang Xiu curiously. Young Master Jiang, this is Elder Lu Changkong of Tianqing school. Shui Xingjing introduced him enthusiastically. However, Jiang Xiu didn't even look at him. He gave him an extremely cold expression, and let him experience it himself. He had saved Shui Lingyun's life and helped her obtain the monster core. A mere little emperor dared to put on airs in front of him. In the end, Jiang Chonghai ridiculed him, and caused a group of people to interfere with his cultivation. If he hadn't survived, all his cultivation would have been destroyed. Seeing Jiang Xiu's indifference, Shui Xingjing's heart sank. This was troublesome. It seemed that this young Master Jiang was really angry. Shui Yank, who was at the side, was very unhappy. You haven't done anything yet, and you're already looking down on the current emperor. If you really succeed, will you still have me, Jialan, in your eyes? Lu Changkong waved his sleeves, indicating that the Kalan emperor didn't need to be so cautious with his introduction. He looked at Jiang Xiu and was 90% satisfied with Jiang Xiu. His only regret was that Jiang Xiu was a god elementalist. What's your name? Jiang Xiu was a little hesitant. He regretted not changing his name back then, but he quickly answered, Jiang Xiu. Your surname is Jiang. Lu Changkong was stunned. This made Jiang Xiu underestimate Lu Changkong even more. It couldn't be that Lu Changkong had associated this with Jiang Luoxia, right? So what if he had the surname Jiang? There were many people with the surname Jiang in this world. Yes, what's the matter? Lu Changkong shook his head lightly and said, My sect has already stayed in Jialan for a few days. In a few days, I will go first and leave the rest to my disciples. The quality of the martial cultivators from outside was getting worse. He knew that it was about time. There are only 2 winners who will enter the second round. His gaze looked between Jiang Xiu and Shui Yank. Jiang Xiu was calm, but he was actually very nervous. If Lu Changkong had a screw loose and didn't want him, it would be troublesome. Shui Yank was even more nervous. One sentence from this person was enough to change the course of her life. For this trip, I only took 3.5 places. However, 2 places have already been used elsewhere. Therefore, there is only 1 place left in the Jialan dynasty. As soon as this was said, everyone in the hall became nervous. Then isn't it a choice between the 2? Lu Changkong nodded and said with a serious expression, that is indeed the case. I can only choose between the 2 of you. His gaze wandered as if he was thinking. Then who will the exalted immortal choose? Lu Changkong's gaze fell on Jiang Xiu. He said, to be honest, with your talent, you can go to almost any sect in the immortal martial continent, except for a few special sections. But you are a god cultivator. Everyone knows that the Tianqing school is a cultivation sect. God cultivators have no advantages. If you come to the Tianqing school, I'm afraid that you will be held back. Jiang Xiu was shocked. Lu Changkong was actually such a person. He didn't realize before that Lu Changkong was such a person. He said, in the immortal martial continent, god cultivator sects are all in decline. Unless I go to the immortal martial continent and learn from the Protoss, the Tianqing school is the best choice. Lu Changkong smiled. You see it clearly. Xue Xingjing and Shui Yank were extremely nervous. Lu Changkong said so much to Jiang Xiu and even had such a high opinion of him. Something was wrong. Lu Changkong turned to them and said, Shui Yank is also very good, but she is not someone that the Tianqing school needs. Boom. Xue Xingjing and Shui Yank's heads exploded. They had already come this far, but in the end, it was all for naught because of the quota? How could they accept this? Immortal. Lu Changkong raised his hand and said, Emperor of Kalan, there's no need to say more. Although Shui Yank had won, she had paid a huge price. She had an instrument and elixir to support her. What Lu Changkong wanted was not a Pyrrhic victory, but a stunning crushing defeat like Jiang Xiu. The so-called quota was just a saying. If they really met a genius, would the sect miss it? No, Immortal, Yang's talent is amazing. I believe that this child has great potential. Immortal, why don't you give him a chance? He will definitely do well. With a thump, Shui Yank knelt down. Please give me a chance. Lu Changkong was in a difficult position. But there is only 1 quota. This is the sect's rule. Although I am an elder, I cannot go against the sect's rules. Please forgive me. Xue Xingjing knew that Lu Changkong had made up his mind and couldn't change it. He asked, if there is a quota, can Immortal send Yank to the Tianqing school? Lu Changkong nodded. Of course. That's good. Xue Xingjing's face turned cold. He looked at Jiang Xiu and said, this person doesn't have the right to enter the Tianqing school. His identity is fake. He is not a descendant of the Jiang family. He is an imposter. Jiang Xiu's eyes fiercely swept over. What? The Tianqing school was very open to accepting disciples, but there was a prerequisite. They had to have a real identity and a clean background. The Tianqing school had been in the immortal martial continent for many years. A tall tree attracts the wind. There were definitely many people who couldn't stand it, not to mention their enemies. Of course, they didn't want to take in a spy. Before the ancient Zhao Rong could reveal his identity, the Emperor of Kalan took the initiative to reveal his identity. Jiang Xiu's real identity was gone, and he couldn't tell Jiang Xiu's real identity. No matter how he made it up, Jiang Xiu would go and verify it. Once verified, he would be exposed. Jiang Xiu, is what the Emperor of Kalan said true? Jiang Xiu smiled. Indeed, he's right. I am not a descendant of the Jiang family. However, this identity was arranged by the Emperor to protect your Xue family's face. Xue Xingjing said. What do you mean? Jiang Xiu said. Do you know why Immortal Xue asked the Emperor to arrange an identity for me? Why? This was also the biggest question in Xue Xingjing's heart. Jiang Xiu said. Then you'll have to ask your ancestor. I think your identity can't be exposed. Don't use my ancestor as a shield. You might be a spy that other sects want to send to the Tianqing school. Xue Xingjing didn't care about anything in order to exchange for a chance for his grandson. Immortal, you saw it too. This person is hiding his head but showing his tail. He even faked his identity. It's obvious that he's not an upright person. The Tianqing school can't accept such a person. He might really be a spy from another sect. Lu Chongkong smiled faintly, indicating for him not to be agitated. Jiang Xiu's identity was fake, but Xue Xingjing exposing him at this time was a little ugly. It was too purposeful, and Lu Chongkong didn't like it. However, Xue Xingjing insisted, Immortal, you know that there's something wrong with this person. If you still accept him to the Tianqing school, aren't you afraid of bringing a huge disaster to the Tianqing school and becoming a sinner of the sect? Jiang Xiu sneered and said, What a big hat. Xue Xingjing, I think you've wasted your position as an emperor. Elder Lu doesn't want your grandson. Do you think it's really because of the quota? It's because he's not qualified at all. Elder Lu is just saving you face. You don't know what's good for you. Chapter 509. As the former sect master of Tianqing School, Jiang Xiu was naturally aware of the Tianqing School's criteria for selecting disciples. Even if he, Jiang Xiu, was disqualified, a piece of trash would never be able to enter Tianqing School. It was ridiculous that he had betrayed his guest for such a non-existent possibility. Xue Xingjing said excitedly, Nonsense. The immortal has clearly agreed just now. As long as there is a spot, he will accept Yan Ku. Immortal, isn't that so? Lu Chongkong was a little embarrassed. This was indeed his excuse. After all, this was Jialan, and he did not want to embarrass the royal family of Jialan. He did not expect the emperor to be so naive. A person who relied on his family's ritual implement, and a pill that temporarily boosted his magical power to win a narrow victory, would also be allowed to enter the Tianqing sect? That's right. Xue Xingjing was extremely excited. Did you hear that? Jiang Xiu, although you were introduced by my ancestor, your identity is suspicious. Why would the Tianqing school want you? Xue Yank, whose face was ashen, became excited. Once again, he saw the light of hope of entering Tianqing school. However, unexpectedly, Lu Chongkong said, Although the Tianqing school requires the identity of its disciples to be clean and have no traces of other sects, Jiang Xiu is an exception. Why? Lu Chongkong gave a very simple reason, but it made Xue Yank speechless. Because he is a god cultivator. The Tianqing school had to guard against immortal sections. Moreover, no sect would let such a genius become a spy. Jiang Xiu's talent could be said to be an elder's talent. If his potential could be unearthed, his future would be limitless. If the Tianqing school did not want him, any sect would fight to take him. Ah! The words that he was a god cultivator fell on Xue Xingjing's head like thunder. He was stunned on the spot, as if his parents had died. Not only did he fail to let his grandson enter Tianqing school, but he also offended Jiang Xiu. Emperor of Kalan, please. Xue Xingjing did not know how he got out. When he walked out, the world outside was dark. Countless people were cheering, but he could not hear a single sound. He was in a daze. How could this be? The dignified emperor of Kalan suffered a crushing defeat. After the Kalan emperor left, Lu Chongkong's eyes flashed as he sized up Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu's heart inexplicably tensed up. This was something he had never felt before. He had a very bad premonition. He saw deep doubt and confusion in Lu Chongkong's eyes. Are there really two people who look so alike? His voice was very soft, as if he was asking himself. Jiang Xiu, go and pack up. Arrange for your servants to follow me back to Tianqing school. Lu Chongkong did not ask any more questions, and directly ordered Jiang Xiu. However, his eyes were filled with deep curiosity as he looked at Jiang Xiu. This made Jiang Xiu feel very bad. He felt that Lu Chongkong was suspicious of him. He originally had a perfect identity to hide, but now that it had been dug out, it made the possibility that Lu Chongkong had already rejected become a problem. Jiang Xiu said, Elder, aren't you going to ask about my background? He had already made up an identity. Lu Changkong smiled and shook his head. A person who looked so similar to Jiang Luoxia was enough to arouse his curiosity. To avoid trouble, you should attend Tianqing School as the fourth son of the Jiang family of the Kalan dynasty. It had already been registered. If it was changed, it would be troublesome. Yes. Jiang Xiu appeared very calm. He knew that the calmer he was, the less suspicious Lu Changkong would be. Young master, young master. Seeing that Jiang Xiu had returned, Li Chang and the two maids came over to welcome him. They looked at Jiang Xiu excitedly and nervously, waiting for him to tell them the answer. Pack up. We're going to Qingzhou. Hua. The two maids hugged each other excitedly without caring about their image. Their fate had completely changed. This was even luckier than winning the lottery. It was simply a second reincarnation. Li Chang was also trembling with excitement. He really did not expect that his persistence at that time would lead to such a great opportunity. The Rain Dragon guards of the Kalan dynasty, when he Li Chang returned, even the emperor of Kalan dynasty would have to be polite to him. Young master, when are we leaving? Jiang Xiu was far from being as excited as them. He was very nervous. Lu Changkong seemed to be suspicious of him. Someone who was so unfamiliar with him was suspicious. There were people in Tianqing School who were very familiar with him. There was no guarantee that he would be recognized. There was no need to say what would happen if he was recognized. To him, attending Tianqing School was no different from dancing on the tip of a knife. Let's go back first and wait for the news. Jiang Xiu did not greet the Jiang family and returned home. However, when he reached the gate of the courtyard, he saw a young girl kneeling down when she saw them coming. It was Shengguan Zhaorong. Young master, can you bring Zhaorong along? She was very nervous and excited. Shui Yank was not chosen. She had already received the news that Jiang Xiu was chosen. Jiang Xiu walked past her. Young master. Tears slid down her beautiful eyes. Zhaorong knows that young master is angry with me, but Zhaorong has no choice. It's not that Zhaorong is unwilling to serve young master, but that Zhaorong can't. Jiang Xiu was curious when he heard this. Young master should have heard some things about Zhaorong, the Yi family's young master, and the Dugu family's young master. Do you know why Zhaorong did not choose them? Indeed, with her current status, being able to follow those two young masters could be said to be like flying into a phoenix. Why? Shengguan Zhaorong said. Because they can't help Zhaorong. My Shengguan family was originally a big family, and my great-grandfather was once ranked first in the imperial court. However, he was convicted by the muddle-headed Xue Xingjing and exiled thousands of miles away. Zhaorong even became a female official in the palace. A female official sounds nice, but she's just the servant of a guilty official. Zhaorong wants to save my family and take revenge on Xue Xingjing. Young master can't give me these things, so young master is kind enough to let Zhaorong leave. Zhaorong will not hesitate. Jiang Xiu said. So when you saw that I can shake the Jialan dynasty, you came over again. Shengguan Zhaorong said yes. As long as young master is willing to let Zhaorong come back, Xue Xingjing will definitely pardon my family. Zhaorong will be grateful and will definitely do her best for young master. Jiang Xiu said. What if I say no? Shengguan Zhaorong gritted her teeth. Do you really want Zhaorong to tell Tianqing School about your fake identity? When the time comes, we'll go our separate ways. Jiang Xiu laughed. You're so stupid. How dare you threaten me? Aren't you afraid of death? Shengguan Zhaorong said. I'm afraid, but I have to say it even if I'm afraid. If I don't say it, I won't have a chance at all. If I say it, there's still a chance. Tears welled up in her eyes again. Jiang Xiu reached out and gently lifted her chin. Her eyebrows were light, her eyes were like autumn water, her nose was high, and her lips were red. She was truly beautiful. So beautiful. Unfortunately, I like to destroy beautiful things. If you die, I'll save your family. Shengguan Zhaorong was startled when she heard this. And then she revealed a look of determination. Thank you for your kindness, young master. Zhaorong will definitely repay you in the next life. Where is your family? The vine forest at the border of Jialan. I cut the grass there. Shengguan Zhaorong's mouth trembled slightly. That was a bitter cold place. There was a lack of food, and life was extremely difficult. It was said that immortals would die there, and the grass there would never be completely cut. Jiang Xiu said, "Get up." After saying that, he walked inside. Shengguan Zhaorong was confused. Xiao Yu, who was beside her, said happily, "Sister Zhaorong, get up quickly. Young master agreed to let you stay." Shengguan Zhaorong was confused and surprised. She didn't know why Jiang Xiu changed his mind. This was because Jiang Xiu was the kind of person who couldn't be swayed once he made up his mind. "Let's go in and pack up. We don't know when the immortals from Tianxing School will come." The people from Tianxing School didn't come, but the Jiang family hurried back. The news that Jiang Xiu was accepted as a disciple of Tianxing School by Lu Changkong had spread. The Jiang family had completely changed. Jiang Xiu had become a treasure. Fourth young master, old madam and master are here to see you. Are you there? The housekeeper knocked on the door gently. The door was still closed, but he was already nodding and bowing. He was afraid that Jiang Xiu didn't know how respectful he was to him. "Why did you close the door?" Xiao Yu was confused and ran to open the door. "Young master doesn't have time to see you." This time, Xiao Yu's tone was also arrogant. She was playing. In the future, she would be a servant of Tianxing School. Didn't she see how awesome the servants of Tianxing School were? Even high officials and nobles had to bow when they saw them. "Sister Xiao Yu, please pass the message." Chapter 510. Even the head of the family addressed her as Sister Xiaoya. Her status would increase by 100 times. Sister Xiaoya said, "You can wait outside." This time, Sister Xiaoya was merciful. She was going to leave for Tianxing School. She didn't know what the young master's attitude was towards his family. When she entered the room, she saw Jiang Xiu arranging the pills on the shelf. Fortunately, Jiang Xiu had refined some of the resources into pills. Otherwise, it would be really inconvenient to carry them. Of course, they didn't dare to carry too many servants' things. As for Shengguan Zhaorong's things, they were all outside, but she didn't dare to go back to get them. What if the people from Tianxing School came and took Jiang Xiu away? "Young master," the head of the family and his people asked for an audience. Jiang Xiu ordered Wang Xinya to put all the pills on the shelf. Then he turned and walked out of the room. Seeing Jiang Xiu come out, the Jiang family's expressions were very strange. Jiang Chonghai smiled. "We came specially to congratulate you," Jiang Xiu said coldly. "You came to congratulate me, not to ask for forgiveness." The smile on Jiang Chonghai's face was very stiff, but he still tried to smile and said, "How can we let such a joyous occasion spoil the mood?" Jiang Xiu said, "That little thing barged in while I was cultivating. How vicious. If I hadn't endured it, even dropping my realm would be a light punishment." The Jiang family's expressions changed. Jiang Chonghai said, "We were also worried that you would be late." Bang. As soon as he finished speaking, Jiang Xiu didn't expect Jiang Xiu to suddenly come out. At this moment, Jiang Xiu's realm was the same as his. He didn't have time to react at all. He saw the shadow of a foot coming at him, and the energy passed through his body. With a puff, he spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child? This kick is aimed at your heart meridian, and severed your golden core great Tao. I want you to have a taste of being seriously injured, having your blood and qi surge in the opposite direction, and having your realm become unstable." Jiang Chonghai's face alternated between green and white. He was in extreme pain, but no one dared to make a sound. "Old madam, old man Du and Jiang Haochuan," Jiang Xiu said, "who led the charge? It looks like you." He pointed his finger at Jiang Haochuan. Jiang Haochuan was so scared that he trembled. There was fear in his eyes as he looked at Jiang Xiu, but there was hatred in the depths of his eyes. "Jiang Chonghai, I'll give you one chance. Kill him." "What?" Jiang Chonghai couldn't believe it. Everyone else was stunned. Jiang Chonghai opened his mouth and said, "You will be a dragon among men in the future. I also took a kick from you. There's no need to lower yourself to my level. You did it yourself. An eye for an eye. If you wait for me to do it, it will be your entire Jiang family." Jiang Xiu's tone was flat, but it sent chills down one's spine. This person was so ruthless to himself, so he must be even more ruthless to others. Jiang Chonghai squeezed out a smile with difficulty and said, "Young master, you must be joking. After all, we are family." Jiang Xiu said, "If you really thought of me as a family, why would you bully me as soon as I arrived? If I was a coward, wouldn't I have been eaten dry? You knew we were family, yet you still forced me to hand over my cultivation resources. You knew we were family, yet you still rushed in at the critical moment of my cultivation? My patience is limited. Don't wait for me to make a move." The muscles on Jiang Chonghai's face trembled. Jiang Haochuan was so scared that his face was pale as he knelt on the ground and cried, "Father, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Don't tell me you don't want to be a family anymore. I'm afraid that if you can't be a family, Tianqing School may not be willing to accept you." He was reminding Jiang Xiu that he was still a member of the Jiang family. Little did he know that Jiang Xiu had already been threatened twice. Jiang Xiu said, "Are you trying to say that I'm not a member of the Jiang family, and that Tianqing School knows about my fake identity and that Tianqing School won't accept me?" Jiang Xiu said it so openly that Jiang Chonghai was shocked. He looked at him in shock and said, You. The people around them couldn't help but burst into an uproar. "He wasn't a member of the Jiang family?" Jiang Xiu said. "In order to get Shui Yang to go to Tianqing School, Shui Xingjing already told Tianqing School about this before you did, but in the end, Jiang Chonghai was stunned." Ah. Zhao Rong Shangguan covered her mouth. It turned out that this matter had already been exposed, and the young master was fine. She thought that her threat had worked. "Is there anything else you want to say?" Jiang Chonghai looked at Jiang Xiu and felt that this person was cold and terrifying. His hair stood on end. His last support had been destroyed. The Jiang family was facing an unprecedented disaster. He turned to look at Jiang Haochuan. "No, father, I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Jiang Chonghai had thought that with the strength of the family, they could kill Jiang Xiu. However, Jiang Xiu was about to become a disciple of Tianqing School. Even the Jialan royal family wouldn't dare to kill a disciple of Tianqing School, let alone them. Haochuan. Jiang Chonghai had no way out. "No, grandmother, I don't want to die. Please save me. You've doted on me since I was young." At this moment, old Madame Jiang was completely at a loss. She was only domineering at home. She didn't dare to say anything in front of outsiders, especially when she knew that Jiang Xiu was only a member of their family. "Haochuan, you caused the trouble yourself. You have to bear the consequences. Don't implicate the whole family." Jiang Haochuan was trembling. He had been beaten by the disciples of Tianqing School several times and cried out in pain. Now that he was going to die, he was lucky that he didn't go crazy from fear. Jiang Chonghai pulled out his sword. "Father!" Blood splattered and sprayed on Jiang Chonghai's face. His eyes were completely dull. He had killed his son with his own hands. Seeing this scene, many women of the Jiang family fainted on the spot and fell to the ground. Old Madame Jiang also sat on the ground. "Young Master Jiang, are you satisfied now?" Jiang Xiu turned around and left. If he didn't do his job well, Shui Xingjing would at most demote him. However, Jiang Xiu wasn't so easy to deal with. If it weren't for his tough life and the cultivation experience of his previous life, anyone else would have died in the thunder today. Shui Xingjing had already shown him great mercy by only killing him. "Young master." Shangguan Zhaorong came to his side. "What's the matter? Since the Tianqing School already knows that you forged your identity, why did you still accept Zhaorong back?" She was very puzzled and couldn't see through this young master. Jiang Xiu didn't answer her, but the answer was actually very simple. "Have you packed everything? Zhaorong has nothing to pack." Jiang Xiu nodded slightly. "Prepare dinner. The possibility of them coming today is not high. I guess they will only come tomorrow morning." The enrollment today was still going on. No matter what, they would have to wait until the end of the day. Lu Chongkong couldn't travel overnight, so he would only come tomorrow morning. In the southeast of the capital, a huge flying boat was floating, hidden in the sea of clouds. This was Lu Chongkong's ride. Although it was far away from Jiang Xiu's ride, it was still very shocking in the eyes of the people of the Jialan dynasty. Many people, even the Jialan royal family, had never seen a flying boat before. The speed of the flying boat was amazing, and it could carry a large number of people. It was also very comfortable. The only drawback was that the cost of counterfeiting was too high. Many of the materials inside were extremely precious, let alone making such a huge flying boat. When Li Chang and the maids boarded the flying boat, they were very nervous and excited. There were also some servants working on the flying boat. In addition, there were Lu Changkong and a few disciples. Qingzhou is very far away. It will take about a month to get there. In addition to the servants, there were 2 other newly recruited disciples and a few old disciples on the flying boat. They gathered together. The 2 newly recruited disciples seemed to be familiar with the old disciples. From time to time, the old disciples would explain to them some things to pay attention to after arriving at the Tianqing school. Elder, that Jiang Xiu doesn't seem to fit in with the group. Lu Changkong turned his head and saw Jiang Xiu standing alone on the deck of the flying boat. He was looking at the clouds flying past in front of him, and the heavenly wind whistled past his ears. Indeed, his temperament is arrogant, and his eyes are indifferent. He always has a feeling of looking down on things, as if everything is like an ant in his eyes. It's really too similar. The disciple asked in confusion, similar to what? Lu Changkong knew that he had said something wrong. He smiled and said, nothing. Jiang Xiu, keep an eye on him. I have a feeling that he's not that simple. Does Master suspect that he's a spy? Lu Changkong shook his head and said, that's not it. I just feel that there's a dangerous aura on him. Chapter 5:11. Danger. The disciple was shocked to hear this from the elder. He was just a new disciple, and he was only in the divine realm. It was unbelievable that the elder would feel danger from him. Elder, are you referring to his talent? He was just a divine realm cultivator. Even if his talent was good, the Tianqing school had no shortage of talented geniuses. It was impossible for him to reach the level of an elder without thousands of years of hard work. The previous sect master, Jiang Luoxia, was the fastest person to become an immortal king, but it still took him more than 2,000 years. It was such a long time ago that he probably wouldn't feel any pressure at all, let alone danger. Lu Changkong shook his head gently and said, just keep an eye on him. If he does anything unusual, report to me. Yes. A disciple clasping his hands in greeting? Although he didn't understand what was going on, he didn't dare to be negligent or question the elder's orders. He turned his gaze to Jiang Xiu. It seemed that this young man was a special disciple of the sect. But what exactly is dangerous about him? There was everything on the flying boat. Although the journey was a bit boring, the pace of life of cultivators was very slow. Some people wouldn't feel bored flying on their swords for months, let alone a month. A month later, the group arrived at the border of Qingzhou. We're back. Jiang Xiu looked at the sect in the distance. It had been almost 60 years. His trip to Earth felt like a lifetime ago. His gaze swept over the main peak of the sky-traversing sect, where he used to be the sect master. However, he couldn't go back there. Do you see it? That's the Tianqing school. Senior brother Ma Dong excitedly and proudly pointed at the sect in the distance. He had spent a long time away from home this time, and he missed his home dearly. It's so spectacular. Big sects naturally had their own style, but Jiang Xiu had seen it too many times and was already numb. Moreover, after entering the mountain, the surrounding vegetation was lush. It felt like returning to nature, and it wasn't as spectacular as it looked from the outside. He also liked peace and quiet. He often went to the forbidden area behind the main peak and stayed in the wooden house to cultivate. Most of the time, he didn't even bring a maid with him. Young master, we're here. Shangguan Zhaorong's beautiful face was also full of joy. When she boarded the airship, the emperor of Jialan had already pardoned the Shangguan family. Not only that, but they were also reinstated. Of course, it was not because of any grievances. It was simply because Shangguan Zhaorong had become Jiang Xiu's concubine maid and a servant of the Tianqing school. And these days, Shangguan Zhaorong also did what she said. She took care of Jiang Xiu's life in every possible way. She warmed Jiang Xiu's bed and made him tea. It could be said that she did her best. We're here, we're here. The other two disciples who had just entered the sect could not suppress the excitement in their hearts. Compared to Jiang Xiu's 4 attendants, these two brought many people. The servant named Wang Zhutian brought a total of 120 people. The other servant named Wu Zhangkui did not lose out either. He also brought more than 100 people. Moreover, they pulled more than 20 carts of supplies. The momentum was astonishing and mighty. They did not need so many servants and supplies. However, they had no choice. A large portion of the supplies were given to them by the current emperor. Many of the people were given to them by the emperor's royal family. Another new disciple has arrived. A disciple who flew by on his sword said when he saw the situation. They had also made a similar mistake, but in the end only a few people were able to stay by their side. The sect did not have so many places for them to stay. Of course, it would be too embarrassing to go back. In the end, they all stayed in Tianqing City. Right now you are only ordinary outer sect disciples. You have to stay here temporarily and cultivate diligently. Only then can you stand out and become inner sect disciples. Only when you become inner sect disciples will a master notice you and accept you as a disciple, and become a true disciple. Senior Brother Ma said. May I ask if Senior Brother Ma is a true disciple? Wang Zhutian asked. Although this kid's name was domineering, he actually looked like a loser. He did not have any temperament, and was even a little simple and honest. However, his personality was just like his name. He was very cool and arrogant. Of course. Do you still need to ask? Wu Zhangkui was a tall and sturdy man. Unexpectedly, Senior Brother Ma looked a little embarrassed and said, Not at the moment. Take it that I have never given up. In Tianqing School, other than the sect master and the law-enforcing elder, only the peak master was qualified to accept disciples. The peak master was a cultivator. How could he waste his time on disciples? Therefore, each person would not accept too many disciples. Only a dozen or so. Even those who liked to accept disciples the most would only accept 30 to 40 people. One could imagine how difficult it was to become a true disciple. Jiang Xiu was a freak in his previous life. It could also be said that he was lucky. He was directly accepted as a disciple by the sect master. In other words, he was a true disciple when he entered Tianqing School. People like him were all top geniuses. The facts also proved that Jiang Xiu's sect master had sharp eyes. Jiang Xiu's sect master only had some difficulties at the beginning. After some time, he soared to the sky after getting used to it. He did not expect the starting point to be so low. However, this was also good. He felt uncomfortable to have another sect master. And it was even a former subordinate. After Lu Chongkong arrived at the sect master, he did not care anymore. This mission was more to deal with the sect master's tasks. However, before he left, he specially called out to Jiang Xiu. You are a spiritual cultivation student. Your situation is special, and I am the one who recruited you. If you encounter any problems in the future, you can come to the long space to look for me. Jiang Xiu said. Thank you, Elder. Lu Chongkong looked at him deeply, then immediately used the escape technique and disappeared. Let's go. He pointed to the distance and said, There are layers of mountains in the sky bridge. Do you see that? The higher the mountain, the more spiritual energy there is, and the stronger the people who live there. Outer sect disciples are not allowed to pass the third peak. This is the rule. If you violate it, you will be punished by the sect. Thank you, Senior Brother. The two new disciples were very obedient, but Jiang Xiu turned a deaf ear to them. Jiang Xiu had come here for 2 reasons. Firstly, he wanted to find out why his position as the sect leader had been replaced by someone else before the 60-year period was up. Secondly, he wanted to retrieve the resources that had been secretly stored in the past. There seemed to be some left under the third peak, but the main treasures were all above. In other words, he had to violate this rule. Ma Dong glanced at Jiang Xiu and frowned. He found that this person was extremely arrogant and treated everything indifferently. He had no respect for anyone. He had been suppressing his anger for the past month, but he couldn't vent it because the elders were on the airship. Now that the elders were gone, this brat still dared to be so arrogant. In the southeast, there is a house that is empty. You guys can stay there. As he said this, he took the lead and went forward. Jiang Xiu could not help but be surprised. The southeast was an auspicious place, so how could there be such a large empty house there? According to Jiang Xiu's memories, it should be full. Could it be? He thought of a possibility. The sect specially went out to recruit disciples this time. Could it be that the sect had exhausted too many disciples? Could it be caused by the change of sect master? When they arrived, Jiang Xiu looked around and quickly took a fancy to a manor near the cliff. It was the most tidy and had lush vegetation. Judging from the layout, it might have been a fairy in the past. It was not Jiang Xiu's mother, but a girl's place. It was tidier and more comfortable to live in. Moreover, it was near the cliff, so it was relatively hidden and convenient for him to come and go. If he lived in the middle, it would be hard to avoid suspicion if he went in and out. Young master, there are so many empty houses. Which one should we choose? Jiang Xiu pointed and said. Let's go to that courtyard. It's very comfortable there. Zhao Rong also likes it. Just as Jiang Xiu's servant was overjoyed that he would be able to start a brand new life here, a voice came from the side. Who said you can choose that courtyard? Your side. It was Ma Dong. He pointed to a shady place. There was no sunlight there, and the courtyard was damp. Because no one lived there, it was even moldy and dilapidated. Jiang Xiu snorted coldly and ignored him. He rushed to the house he had chosen. Impudent. Ma Dong's figure flashed and blocked Jiang Xiu's path. I said, your courtyard is that one. Jiang Xiu said. I insist on living here. What can you do about it? The surrounding people looked at Jiang Xiu in astonishment. A newcomer who had just arrived at Tianqing School dared to go against a senior. He was too reckless. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.